Hey, are you ever going to start this podcast you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think that anyone will actually want to listen to something like this?
What is your plan for an introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk about these topics? People usually disagree.
3 hours? Are you crazy?
Do you think you're some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to have an intro song?
What if a bunch of people get really mad and hate you over this?
Do you even know how to make a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with people?
Don't let this be just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better to do just one episode for each topic?
Stop trying to change people's opinions. Just live your own life.
Dude, people are never going to agree. Just let it go.
Is this going to be a long intro? Because if it is, I'm bored already.
I know that I've already ranted about pedestrians walking in the road, and during that rant, I briefly mentioned bicycle riders. But the more that I thought about it, I realized that the bike riders are even more annoying. And I think that the main reason is because of the riders themselves. They always seem to have this smug, entitled attitude, as if we, the automobile drivers, are the problem. I said this already when discussing pedestrians, but it's worth repeating here. The streets were designed for cars to drive on. Cars. Anyone else should see it as a privilege, not an entitlement, to use the roads. Yet most of them don't, do they? They look at you as if you are the problem. You are getting in their way. I simply cannot fathom this. Why on earth do they have this viewpoint? It makes no sense. These people have the audacity to clog up the roads, oftentimes causing the auto drivers, the people that should be there, to go much slower than normal, on a road that was designed to go much faster, in some cases causing those drivers to be late to wherever they are going. There are plenty of beautiful mountain roads and bike trails for them to ride on. And look, I'm not saying that we shouldn't share the road with bicyclists. I am just saying that they shouldn't be there. But if they are there, if they can somehow find no other way of traveling to their destination without being there on the road with cars, then I think we should share the road with them. But they should also view it as a privilege. They should be going out of their way to make sure that they are not causing the motorists any issues at all. Is this too much to ask? Probably. Today my guest is Allan Scanlan, or as most people know him, Big Al. Back in 2001, I was hired to work in the amusement park at Neverland Valley Ranch, and I would continue to work there for almost 3 years. During that time, Big Al was my boss. Obviously, getting the opportunity to work there was a huge blessing, and I have many fond memories and awesome stories about my time out there, some of which I have shared previously on the show. Anyone that has spent any amount of time around Al knows that one of his favorite sayings is, "Life is good." It didn't really matter what was happening at the time. If you asked Al how he was doing, his response would be, life is good. In fact, I hadn't even talked to him much in years, and when he arrived on my doorstep to record this episode, I opened the door and said, "Hey, how's it going?" His response, "Life is good." Big Al has one of the biggest hearts of anyone I have ever met, and he is probably the only person to ever live that can say that he has ridden an elephant while wearing a Santa suit. If you listen to all the episodes of this podcast and try to piece together all the pieces of my own life, you could probably do a pretty good job, with the exception of one thing that I have mentioned but never really talked too much about, and that is my time at Neverland. This is mainly because I never had a guest on the show that could add to that part of the conversation. We spend some time reminiscing and sharing stories about our time at Neverland, and of course, as always, we venture into the realm of politics and spirituality as well. Our discussion today includes working in the amusement park business, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Stevie Ray Vaugh, Pink Floyd, Joe Bonamassa, Michael Jackson, Jethro Tull, writing a book, working for Michael Jackson, our favorite Neverland guests, gun control, presidential debates, Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, gas prices, Candace Owens, biased media, growing up Catholic, Greg Laurie, the Jesus Revolution, Joel Osteen, Dennis Agajanian, Heaven and Hell, The Great Divorce, and Absolute Truth. Enjoy the conversation.
I just sent a thing out for Christmas to a couple of the Michael fan websites, Facebook pages, or whatever. I said, the first time I got approached about doing any interviews about Michael, I had no desire to share my stories.
Oh, really?
Because I just said, it's Michael's personal life, my personal life. And,
gotcha.
But the first one, when I finally did one, and the reaction from the fans was like,
yeah.
I mean, it was just unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of your stories are fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and that's what they kind of actually. I can't remember which one of them was it. I was one of the event. I think it was the event I went to in London. This lady said, we really love your stories, but she goes, you don't have to. It's not you. You don't have to convince us what kind of guy he was.
Right.
But your stories tell the. Everybody knows about the Song and Dance Man, but your stories tell the side, the personal side, what kind of person he really was from the heart.
Right.
And
right.
And kind of made it feel like it was, it was kind of like my duty to help his legacy.
Yeah, so. Like a calling or something, Because
actually, and then last summer I get invited to go to the Michael Jackson birthday thing in Vegas every year, and 3 years ago I met his son Prince.
Yeah, I saw the pictures of that. Yeah. And
so now I'm not going to say we're friends or anything, but last year he goes, hey, I heard you're writing a book. I go, only with your approval. And he goes, absolutely.
Okay.
He goes, you don't know who I am on Facebook, but because I go, I view it through somebody else. I can't.
Right.
He goes, but we see everything that you say and do, and we really appreciate it. So.
And I'm sure he remembers you from when he was little, right?
Yeah. I'll show you the video. I'll get choked up showing you the video, but I hadn't seen him since his dad passed away.
Right.
And it was the first year I went to the birthday thing, because usually that time of year I'm too busy I can't take a week. I can't take any time off.
Yeah.
But that particular year I was driving. I picked up my RV in storage in Salt Lake City, and I was taking it to Arizona. So I had to drive right through Vegas, and I had all week. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go. Well, then we're in the event is held at the Mandalay Bay in the Cirque Theater where they have the Michael show
in Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they do a bunch of. Part of it is seeing the Cirque show, but they do a bunch of other things. They have a big. They bring out all this food. I mean, I'll show you pictures later. But
we wanted to see that show, and we just haven't done it yet.
But so I'm in the very back talking to Michael Bush, the guy that did Michael's wardrobe, and he's the guy that made my Santa Claus suit.
Nice.
And,
the one you were on top of the elephant?
Yeah. And he's talking to the fans about something, and I was with him, and I was telling the Santa Claus suit story to some fans, and Michael Bush was there, and he goes, oh, he says, I never told you the rest of the story. I go, what? And he goes, well, he says, yeah, it was about 2 or 3 weeks after Christmas, Michael called me, and he goes, Bush, he goes, I want you to make Big Al a Santa Claus suit.
Love it.
Now, at this point in time, Michael Bush and I never met.
Okay.
So how does a wardrobe guy make something for somebody they haven't seen? So he goes, I hesitated for a second, and he says, then I asked him, I said, well, Michael, how big is Big Al? And he goes, it was really funny because it was like complete silence for about 5 seconds. Then Michael started laughing. He goes, he's really big.
Nice.
But anyway, then some other fans came up, and they go, Big Al, we know that you're dying to, meet back up with Michael's kids. Because I tell everybody, I said, for years after Michael died, I just thought how rotten it was that he's not getting to see him grow up, and they're growing up without a dad.
Right.
And so anyway, when I went down. He said Prince is down front. He's talking to some fans. So I went down there. I waited till every one of them was done. And he's just like his dad. He was really super gracious. He'd stand there and talk and take pictures and sign autographs until there was nobody left.
Yeah.
And then I walked up, and he did not recognize me.
Okay.
But I told him, well, I'll show you the video later.
Yeah. So you told him who you were, and then he probably remembered you by name.
Well, I said, I worked for your dad for 15 years at Neverland. He goes, oh, really? And he was kind of like excited. And then I said, Big Al. And then it was over, man. He grabbed me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I definitely want to hear some of those today. I'm curious, what you remember about, because I have my memories of some of the certain things that happened out there involving me and you. Mm-hmm. To my detriment, some of them, but I don't remember. I don't know if you remember any. So I was going to ask you, what memories do you, if any, do you have any of working with me out there? Is there any specific incidents that come to mind? Maybe you've blocked them out.
Well, really, after all these years, I mean, the things that really stick out, there's certain groups that we did that stick out in my mind, like the Burn Foundation, and then there's things I did with Michael, and I remember everybody that worked there. Yeah. I just don't, unless it involves a funny story that around Michael, I kind of really don't. Like, I remember security called us one day. And I don't know why, because Dan didn't usually work in the park unless it was an event, but I don't know if this was a holiday or what, but it was just me and Dan. You remember Dan? Oh yeah. It was just me and Dan in the amusement park. And security called and said, Michael's coming down to the park and he wants with a guest, and he wants a couple of scooters. Okay. Well, the scooters were all the way in the back in the train barn, so Dan and I went down there, and of course, I don't know if you remember, those scooters were like, I could pick one up and carry it around my arms. Right.
And they're for kids, right?
And Dan's really, 100 pounds soaking wet. Yeah. So we go down there in the golf cart, and we get two scooters, and we're coming back up. And of course, my scooter, you can barely see it underneath me, and I'm sure it was blowing out smoke. And we get, and there's Michael standing right where the track comes back together, going towards the zoo, the driveway that we would turn in to go like to the Sea Dragon room. He's standing right there, and I can see that he's laughing. He's looking at me and laughing, and he's actually pointing at me. And he's laughing. I mean, I can tell he's laughing. Yeah. And of course, when I tell this story to the fans, they get it right away because they have all of his videos memorized. Right. I don't know if you've ever seen this video, but is
it Speed Demon?
Speed Demon.
Okay. Yeah.
So the two fat claymation.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like animated or claymation. Okay, yeah.
So he's laughing at me, so I just said, okay. I mean, it just instantly came to my mind, like I should have been a stand-up comedian or something. I go right up to like within this far of his foot, and I slam on the brakes, and I look at him. I go, "Hey, Mister, want to autograph my belly?"
What did he say? Did he lose it?
Oh man, I thought he was gonna fall down and not be able to breathe. He was laughing. So hard.
My gosh, that's so awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's great. No, there's two that stick out to me because they're bad, I think, is what it is. The first one was when it was like my first big event. I think I'd only been working there maybe a month, and I just learned how to drive the little train.
Oh, it's coming back to me now.
Yeah, and it was Joe Jackson's birthday party, so it was like everybody everywhere. There was like so many people there, but this was towards the beginning, and there wasn't as many people there, thankfully. Yeah. And I had like maybe 5 or 6 people on the train, and it was like the first trip I'd taken all day, first big event, and I get down by the house where it's that turnaround by the gate. And I derailed it. Yep. And I remember I started going, and all of a sudden I'm hearing this noise. I look back behind me, and like all the the cars behind me are going this way. I'm going, oh no, what's happening? I thought I was going to get fired for sure. I was like, you got to be kidding me. On my first big event, this is what happened. So I had to call you, and I was like, hey, we got a problem down here by the house. And you're like, well, what's the problem? I said, well, the train is no longer on the track. So that's, and you're like, whoa. But then the other one was when I almost hope you don't remember this because this was terrible. I should have got fired for this. It was a maintenance day, so there wasn't an event or anything. It was just we were just working on rides and cleaning stuff. And I don't remember who was in the cart with you. Maybe it was Julio, but I had somebody on. No, I was by myself on the train. So you guys were right by the park, and you had pulled up in that little red golf cart, and somebody was with you, and you had stopped on the train. Well, over by the theater was Javier, who was somebody that was working in the park, and we were goofing around with each other as I was going forward on the train, right? I didn't know you had stopped on the tracks. And I was like, oh my, I could have killed you. This is why it's not even funny. I don't know why I'm laughing about it. Because in hindsight, it's funny. But like you had literally just stepped out of the golf cart, and I rammed the back of the golf cart with the train. And you kind of did one of these. You didn't fall, thank God. But you kind of did a stumble. And I was like, oh my gosh, and of course, you being the way you are, you were very calm and collected, and I was like, I was like just groveling. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just did that. Are you okay? And you're just like, yeah, it's fine. I don't know if inside you were like thinking of ways to kill me or not, but
I was probably thinking, where did we find this guy?
Yeah, and that was probably towards the end of my working there. That I probably had been there a couple years at that point, so that wasn't as close to the first event, right? But I was like, oh my gosh, this is just terrible. But anyway, so I'm sure we'll get into some of that stuff too as we go, because it's so interwoven in your life. Yeah. So why don't you, since we haven't, it's been a long time since we've hung out, so just kind of why don't you just kind of give me an idea what a day in the life of Big Al looks like these days. You're obviously very busy. I see on Facebook you're traveling all over the place.
Yeah, I'm very busy. Probably busier than I'd like to be. I keep telling people I'd like to slow down a little bit, and I keep getting more work. And the bad part about the good, I guess it's a good and bad thing about what I do for a living. There's not very many people that do it.
Right.
Not very many people that have the experience or the credentials.
So you're in demand in a sense. Yeah.
But the bad thing is that there's not, like, I'm getting ready to go to every year I go to a training seminar. I go there, I have to get a certain number out. I have to get 32 hours of training every other year to keep my certifications up. I go every year just because I also teach. So, but there's nobody out there, no young up and coming, potential down the road ride inspectors.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of a dying.
Yeah, it's like, well, there's a certain amount of liability. Now that I own my own company, I can tell you that insurance is.
Oh.
I've always had kind of a negative opinion about insurance companies.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that they're like the biggest thieves on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
And now I know they are.
Right. Now you know firsthand.
Yeah. What I do for a living is considered a high risk, not for me personally, but a potential high risk for. I mean, if somebody gets killed on an amusement ride that I inspected, I'm going to get named in a lawsuit.
Right.
And so it's $10-20 million potential lawsuit.
Whew.
So the insurance, and there's a few brokers that actually deal with the amusement ride industry, and anybody else you call, any other broker you call, and when you tell them what you do, they just hang up and say, "Don't answer that guy's call."
Oh, really? Because it's such a high risk occupation. Okay.
Yeah. And then, so the brokers that you do deal with, there's only a handful of insurance companies that actually will write the policy. So no matter what broker you go to, they're all going to the same insurance company. So there's no competition. It's hard to get a decent rate.
Yeah.
I mean, all you can hope for is you get a broker that's taking a smaller commission or something. I don't know. But,
wow.
But during COVID, I have two types of insurance. I have professional liability and general liability. General liability is a piece of cake. It's not much money at all. But the professional liability is pretty pricey. Well, when COVID hit, I knew, or I was in Houston, which is our biggest event that we do of the year, dollar-wise and attendance-wise. They do 2.4 million people in 3 weeks.
Everything's bigger in Texas, right?
It's unbelievable.
That's nuts.
And
that's Houston, you said?
Yeah, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. It's really a rodeo, but they have 80 amusement rides out in the parking lot.
And is that in the summertime that happens?
No, it's actually in March.
Okay, good.
The whole month of March.
'Cause I was going to say, man, it gets nasty in Houston in the summer.
But anyway, we were only 1 week into the event, and when it basically shut the country down, and the key players in this Houston rodeo, the board of directors, who I'm sure they're all, billionaire oil men and medical people. And anyway, they called us in to tell us that they've been fighting it, and there's no way they're going to have to shut down. Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't long after that I found out that every single one of my contracts, most of my summers in California. And of course I knew that if anybody was going to fall off the planet because of COVID, California was going to be first in the line.
Right.
And every single one of my contracts canceled. Well, my insurance comes due like in May. And they usually send me an email, a month ahead of time saying, hey, your insurance is coming out. So once a year a payment. And So I called them up and I said, listen, I said, every single one of my contracts is canceled. And my professional liability is very expensive. I said, I can't see spending that kind of money on something I know that I'm not going to use.
Yeah, for nothing, right.
And I said, can I pay like a third and you suspend the policy? I was trying, is there something we can do?
Yeah.
I don't want to just cancel, but I know I'm not going to. And they basically, I don't want to say politely, but they just said, either pay it all or it's canceled. I said, okay. I said, you don't need to call me back or email me. Go ahead and cancel it.
Okay. Nice.
Well, then when COVID, when things start happening again after COVID, I have to go through the whole process again, and they're like 10 times the rate. And one of the first things, and there's not even an application that applies to what I do for a living. They send me an application for an architect engineer. So half of it I can't even answer because it has nothing to do with my business.
Right.
Well, just answer what you can. Well, one of the first things I ask you is how much money do you make?
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, is that so you know how much money you can steal from me?
Yeah, that's probably exactly why.
So when they send me the quote, it's like 50% of my gross.
Wow.
And I go, do you guys actually read beyond? Do you just look and see, oh, this is how much he makes? Okay, this is what we're going to charge him.
Right.
And I said, well, obviously you didn't even do that, because how could you possibly charge somebody half of their gross? That means, I mean, I'm working between you and the government.
Yeah.
I'm working 80% of the year for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't even make a car payment on what's left over.
Yeah, it's nuts.
So.
I wish they just destroy the whole system and start over. I mean, I don't know what. But then people always say, well, what would be the new system, Ryan? I don't know. Yeah. I just know the one we got sucks, and it's money hungry.
Well, I'm not a big fan of regulating everything, but
right.
They almost need to deregulate that. But if there was more competition, that's what they need to do. Mm-hmm. Make it where there's so many regulations by state, and even though I travel through many states, I have to deal with somebody that's licensed in this state or whatever.
Yeah. So. Now, do you have to be licensed in every state that you go to, or does your one license?
No, most all of my contracts are. They just look at my credentials and my history in the business.
Okay.
Now, I do have every state that, like California, has their own amusement ride safety division as part of DOSH, Department of Safety and Health.
Okay.
And they permit the rides, and they have a group of inspectors. Now, Texas, the Texas Department of Insurance, they certify people like me. I have to fill out an application, and they just look at it and they go, okay, you're certified. So I can actually do inspections in the state of Texas and issue a Texas Department of Insurance permit.
Oh, okay.
And even if I'm not certified in a state, if the client hires me just because they want a third-party inspector, usually the client is, like, if it's a music festival, it's the promoter, or if it's a fair, it's the fair. They just want a third-party inspection. They don't. I mean, they don't care if it's permitted or not.
Okay.
I mean, if that state requires a permit, they want to know the rides are permitted. But like California, their inspectors look at the rides once a year, maybe. Sometimes they're so far behind that it's the next year before they look at them.
Yeah.
And so I just inspected some rides in California, and if I see a permit that's outdated, I always have to make a note and ask, because I'm protecting my client who's the fair, and I also have a relationship with the state people. So I said, hey, I'm looking at so and so's amusement rides, and they have these 3 rides. The permits are expired. Yeah, we know they're on our list to get to them. So, or
someday,
or they'll say no, don't let it open. They were supposed to schedule it. So
okay.
Wow. But yeah, there's about 10 states that Nebraska, I don't know, I can't remember all of them, but any state that allows a third party like me to be licensed in their state, I try to get licensed. That way my name goes on their mailing list and their phone list. And like Utah just adopted a policy, and I'm now on the state of Utah's list. So now I get emails from people, and hey, can you come look at the? It's funny because I got an email the other day. A lady wanted me to come look at an inflatable, like the thing you put in the backyard for your kids.
Like a bounce house?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was one inflatable, and it was in Ohio, I think. And I'm like, I said, you really need to try and find somebody in Ohio.
She wanted you to fly out to Ohio?
I was on the list, and I said, I'd be more than happy to do it, but you're talking, it probably cost you $3,000 for me to come out there and look at that inflatable. I said, I'm pretty sure there's somebody in Ohio that
right
could do it for a lot less money.
So she said she took your advice?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say you didn't go out there, did you?
No.
So you do inspections on pretty much anything amusement related then, really, not just like roller coasters or amusement park rides.
Yeah, I have one client. I fly all the way from here, wherever I'm usually either in California or Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I'll fly all the way from here to Orlando to inspect a railroad at the zoo, and it takes me, about 2 hours. It takes me all day to get there and all day to get back.
Wow.
I'm there for 2 hours. And I told him, I said, and I don't know, well, they got my name from, I'm very good friends with a guy that runs the insurance company that insures them, and he just, and he trusts that I'll do a good job inspecting, and he knows I know a little bit about railroads.
Right.
And,
wow. That's cool,
so
man.
they called me and I said, well, for me to come all the way from, I'm in Arizona. I said, for me to come out there, it's going to cost this much. And they said, that's okay.
They're like, hey, you're worth it, man.
And I said, okay.
So is your year pretty busy then with like, is it year round? And you don't, I'm sure you have big festivals and stuff that you are just planning on being at every year, but then interspersed in between all that, is there like just people calling you?
Like in the wintertime, I spend a lot of time in Arizona when I should be home, but I have about 6 or 7 events in Arizona. It's only 1 or 2 day of inspection work, but it's like 1 or 2 days this week, and then 1 or 2 days next week at a different, There's some Indian reservations that do some Christmas things, and they rent a bunch of rides, and there's some New Year's things. I mean, there's just all these little events. The Salt River Project, which is kind of like Arizona's version of PG&E.
Okay.
They do a big Christmas party for their employees, and they rent 10 amusement rides. So it's just a bunch of little one-day events, and then anyway. So I kind of stay. It's nice because I have several days off. I can get some things done. Personal wise. And
so how many days out of the year would you estimate you're actually at home base with your family?
Oh, probably 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because in the summertime, and I don't want to make it sound like I work 7 days a week, but actually there's quite a bit of the summertime where I'll work. I would say for about 4 months, I average working 6 days a week, 10 to 12 to 14 hours a day. Some of the events I do, I have another guy that I work with, so we split the hours up. But we still both work longer hours because during prime, peak hours, we both want to be there. And then some of the events I do, I'm there by myself, and I can't, like I do the EDC Music Festival in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And that's I'm an early. I get up early. I don't know where because when I was a kid I didn't, but
yeah, I didn't either. I do now though. I'm up about 4 or 5.
I'm up every day at 6 o'clock. No matter what.
Yeah.
And
it's probably working at the ranch did that too.
Yeah. Well, but like EDC, they open the doors at 6 o'clock at night, and they run till 6 in the morning. So,
wow.
So now I take my RV there, and they give me an RV space. The first year I tried a hotel, and the traffic is just you got to leave like 3 hours early to get there, and then you're sitting in traffic for 3 hours afterwards. So I just take my RV. That way I have a golf cart, so I can go to my RV, I can do some laundry, I can work on the report, I can have dinner, I can watch some TV, and if I get a call on the radio, I can wherever I have to be, I can be there in 5 minutes on my golf cart.
Nice. So that probably works out better for them too.
So and usually what I do is there about 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm done. I'll go to my RV, I'll leave my radio on, leave my phone on.
Yeah.
And I'll fall asleep and hope they don't call me, and if they do,
okay,
be like a fireman, I just jump out of bed and go.
Wow.
And it's a crazy event, but the first time I got called by them, I'd never even heard it. I didn't know what it was.
Right.
I didn't know what electronic dance music was. I didn't know what.
Okay.
I don't really call it a rave when I see pictures of what raves are, but some people call it a rave. But the kids are absolutely. I call them kids because everybody there is like in their 20s. I think.
Right.
They're absolutely the most well-behaved.
Really?
Group of people I've ever been around.
Interesting.
I know there's drug use, but I mean, I said I don't know. I wouldn't know what ecstasy is if somebody handed me
Right.
a spoonful of it or however it comes.
Well, hopefully you know what it was, so you didn't think it was ice cream and take a bite.
That's true. Well, if I didn't know what it was, I wouldn't take it. But I mean, I wouldn't know what it was from, and I said, I don't know what they're on or if they're even on anything. But I said, but they act like I do after about a glass of wine.
Right.
They're extremely polite. I mean, I've got to be probably the oldest person there. And I stand around, I'm wearing a uniform shirt, and I got a lanyard and a radio, so they just look at me like I'm somebody. Important.
You're official.
But I will say in a 10-hour span, I'll have 100 people or 100 groups of people walk up to me and not trying to be funny, but being sincere, thank me.
Wow.
They don't even know what I do there. And sometimes I'll tell them, I said, you don't even know what I do. They go, well, we know you're part of making this happen, and we love it.
Yeah, they're like, we're having a good time.
So we're thanking you because we know you had a part in making this happen. I go,
that's awesome.
So
what do you do at that event? Is it radios you still run though?
No, they use them. They have amusement rides.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, they have about 20 amusement rides there.
And those run from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. like all night?
Yeah.
Dang.
And it's all free. It's all part of the paid.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I go in a week early and I inspect the rides while they're setting them up, and then I could probably have more time off, but this started a long time ago, and I still believe it's a legitimate thing. Mm-hmm. I could just go in and do my inspection and leave. But the guy that I started doing inspections for way back, even before I started working at Neverland, he would sell the clients on having us there for the entire event, because we would every morning we would pick 1 or 2 rides and re-inspect them.
Yeah.
Then we'd pick another 1 or 2 rides and watch their guys inspect them and make sure they're doing what they're doing. And then most of the claims in that business come from human error, which is usually the operator or the guest, or a combination of the two, which means that's during operating hours. So we walk around during operators' hours, and I call it babysitting, but we just walk around and watch the rides operate and make sure that the guys are, checking the heights and making sure if it says, you have to have 2 people per car, they put 2 people per car. So we watch all that. And then if there is a first aid report, the first aid, most all of our clients instruct their first aid people to notify us. And if it's ride related, we'll go see if we can figure out what happened, why it happened, and can we make it not happen again.
Right. And are you kind of incognito as you're walking around, or do they know who you are?
Oh, they all know us, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So then it could be that they're doing things wrong and they see you walking from far. Oh, all right, we better start doing the right.
Most of our events, most of the events I do are very, very big. Most of them are in the top 25 events for North America for attendance-wise. So when they get busy, they're not looking to see if the inspector guy's out there. And like in Houston, I can show you pictures of the crowd in Houston. You couldn't find your own family member 10 feet away from you. There's so many people there,
which is frightening.
You can walk on people's heads from one end of the fair to the other. It's so crowded.
Yeah.
So
that's when some of those kid leashes might come in handy.
Right. Yeah. and pretty much all of my clients, I've had the same clients forever, and the carnivals don't look like. It's funny that you have a different attitude. Well, in people in general, but just from the Western United States to the Eastern United States, when I go do stuff on the East Coast, they still look at the ride inspector as the evil, enemies, just sitting up at night trying to make me do things that
Right.
And I tell people, I go, I started out on that side of the fence.
Yeah.
I slipped underneath a ride.
Yeah.
I was getting paid $10 a day.
Yep.
And working, all day, every day, 7 days a week, setting up rides and tearing down rides. I said, when I go to inspect, first of all, I want to make sure that it's done the way the manufacturer says. If they have any safety bulletins, I make sure they're. And then I want to make sure it's operated the way the manufacturer says. And I'm looking at it like I might be bringing my family or my friends out here.
Right. I
said, I'm never gonna. I said I was on the other side of the fence. I was the guy that lied to the inspectors and tell them I did all that.
Right.
And I said that's why I tell them is that when I get a new client that if it's a carnival, I said don't lie to me.
Yeah.
I said I wrote the book on lying to the inspectors. There ain't a lie out there that you can tell an inspector I haven't told them. I said so don't tell me. I said I'm not going to ask you to do anything I wouldn't do if I owned that ride.
Right. Right.
And so.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that part of your story too, because we talked about that back when we used to work at Neverland, but about how you didn't just come in as a supervisor or as a ride inspector. It's like you literally were a carny for years, so that's really, really cool. I mean, because then that gives you, it's like any job. Like if I'm working at a supermarket and I know that the manager, the head supervisor started off as a box boy, that makes you feel a little better about it. You're like, you've been there, done that. You worked your way to where you are, and you're not just some guy with a degree that just came in and he doesn't even know how to do those lower jobs. You know what I mean? So that's really cool. But all right, man, let's jump into some music talk. Okay. I know you're a music guy. That's one of the things we bonded over very early on in our friendship. But I like to go back to like your earliest memory of the first time you ever thought to yourself that's awesome. I got to get me some more of that, whatever that is. I know that's hard sometimes.
Yeah. As I say about really seriously listening to music and being into it. I mean, I remember as a really little kid, I was born in Montana, a real small town in Montana.
Do they have music in Montana?
Yeah, well, and it's funny because my dad, I mean, this was, I don't know what the population was, but there was only one newspaper and one radio station in town. My dad owned them.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would go down to the radio station. It was one of those old-fashioned where they had a big room out there that was like a theater. I mean, if they were doing like, they actually could do live stuff out there. And I'd sit out there and watch the guy behind the glass and pretend like I was a DJ. I mean, I was like 8 years old.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And, so I remember listening to music all the time, but I don't think it really registered until I was probably, I don't think I really got serious about music until I was in high school.
Okay.
And I caught the tail end of the 60s, so
yeah.
I graduated from high school in 72. So I kind of caught the tail end of the.
Also, junior high and early high school was all like right in the middle of classic rock stuff.
Yeah, the Summer of Love.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I think my first. I want to say the Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix, the Doors. I mean, that was all the kind. That was what I grew up on.
Okay.
And I can't believe, as much as I'm into music and as much as I really like good guitar playing, I never learned how to read music or play an instrument or anything.
Yeah.
But I've always had anybody that had really good guitar work. I just was like, I would close my eyes and just imagine myself being able to do that.
Yeah, fantasize.
Even if it was a genre, I mean, I still to this day like basically classic rock and roll and blues.
Right.
That's the only two kind of music I really listen to.
Okay.
But I can listen to anything if there's good guitar work in it. I probably won't download it or buy a copy of it, but if it's got good guitar work, I'll go, hey.
Okay. Yeah, because that's one of the things I remember is like Steve Vai. Like I didn't know who that was until I met you, and then you would play some of those songs on the way out to work.
I'm going to see Steve Vai.
Oh no way!
Next month.
Where's he playing?
Phoenix.
Okay.
Tucson. He's playing in Tucson.
Tucson. Okay. Yeah, and there was another guy that you really liked too. That was a really good guitar player. He had a bald head and he had like shades. That's not Steve Vai, right? That's there's another guy that you really liked because I remember I'd see the CD covers.
Joe Satriani.
There it is. Yeah, that guy. Yeah. So you'd play his stuff too, and most of that was like instrumental, just like really.
Yeah, most of his stuff is just instrumental.
Okay. Yeah.
I got to actually meet him.
Oh,
he
wow.
played. I was working the Arizona State Fair, and he played in place of probably one of my top 5 favorite guitar players, Stevie Ray Vaugh.
Oh.
And that was the summer Stevie Ray Vaugh got killed like a month before the Arizona State Fair in that helicopter crash.
Crazy.
And
that close.
And Joe Satriani honored the contract and played in his place.
Okay.
And I was just actually watching, after the show, I was just watching, because I had an all-access badge, I was watching the guys just load out. And all of a sudden, like this is, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes after the show was over, he comes out and he's got a cold Corona in his hand. And I'm kind of leaning on a road case, and he just comes over and sits on the road case and just starts talking to me.
Really?
And he goes, "What do you do here?" Because I guess he might have been asking me that because I wasn't doing anything.
Right.
I was watching all these guys work. So,
yeah.
And I said, I'm actually the amusement ride inspector, and that always kicks up people's curiosity.
Yeah.
So he started talking to me about that, and then we got on the subject of Stevie Ray Vaugh, and he was like, he was like almost emotional, because I know all those guys know each other,
right?
And everybody respected Stevie Ray Vaugh.
Oh, he was like a pioneer, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I have a video I post about once every 6 months on. He's live at some event in Texas, and I can't remember what song he's playing, but he breaks a string while he's doing a big heavy guitar thing, and never misses a beat. And then there's a pause for about 2 seconds. And a guy comes out with another guitar, and they swap it. But he never stops playing. He's got this broken string flying around. He's playing and playing and playing. And all of a sudden, there's a pause in the music just for a second. He swaps guitars.
Wow, it just goes right.
But anyway, it was kind of fun meeting.
Yeah, that's really cool. And was that before you were a big fan, or were you already a big fan at that time?
Well, I knew that he was a very talented guitar player. And I had a few of his CDs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, that was kind of.
That's awesome. So let's go back to some of the classic rock stuff of your youth. Did you have any favorite? I mean, you mentioned Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix, and the Doors. Are those like three of your big favorites? Or
well, I would say over all the years, I would say Pink Floyd's probably my favorite, and then I would have to come in next would be probably Joe Bonamassa.
Okay.
Which a lot of people haven't heard of because he doesn't cater to the music industry in big venues. He does small theaters, but he plays.
Yeah.
I mean, he does a show every other night all year long,
okay.
And he's. I tell you how, and you'll have to find this online. When he was 12 or 13 years old, he was kind of a chubby little kid, and he was so talented that B.B. King invited him to come up and open for him. So if you're 12 years old and you get invited to open for B.B. King,
you know you have a bright future ahead of you.
He probably didn't know it at the time, but that says a lot to me. That's about all he needs for his resume.
Right.
So, and I saw him at Red Rocks, which if anybody gets a chance to see anybody at the Red Rocks in Colorado, that's a place to see him.
Yeah, I have another friend who's been to some shows there, and I've never been there.
And then let's see, after that, probably Santana, another.
Okay.
You'll see a theme that everybody in my top 5 list is
good
really good guitar player.
Yeah.
Let's see, after Santana, probably Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Okay.
And then now the fifth one, well, you'll know the connection, but it really is guitar. It's Michael Jackson.
Okay.
Because wherever Michael was at, whether he was in the studio or on tour, over 40 years, he had an ear for guitar players.
Okay.
I mean, he knew good guitar players, and he always had.
Yeah.
Whether it was Jennifer Batten or the girl that was going to play on the tour that never happened.
Yeah.
Orianthi.
You work with Slash, Eddie Van Halen. Yeah.
I mean.
But what's the story with that? I always get it mixed up because it's Beat It, I think, right? But he wasn't it that he wasn't actually playing on that song, or did he play the lead guitar on that song?
He played, well, there's lead and there's rhythm. And
okay.
He didn't work in the, I don't think he was actually in the, he just came in and did his stuff as a favor to, I think, Quincy.
Oh,
Quincy Jones.
Okay.
And because you can find Eddie will tell you the story online. He goes, we're on break because we had a deal where nobody, was allowed to go out and do other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we were on break, and he goes, I'm going to go in and play guitar for this black kid. And, I mean, who's going to know?
Yeah. That becomes one of the biggest songs in history.
Yeah.
Wow. That's funny. Yeah, because I always heard these conflicting views on that. Some say, "Oh no, he's credited, but he didn't actually play," or vice versa.
I think he's not credited because legally, I think he didn't want to be credited.
Oh, okay.
But he did. But you can find on YouTube. You can find him, Eddie Van Halen, actually explaining how.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll have to look that up. Yeah. That's awesome. So I'm trying to think of some of these ones that because I like classic rock too. I'm sure I have nowhere near the understanding of a lot of the songs during that time, but I mean my dad was big into that. I mean he's 76, so I mean that was his prime time too, right? So I grew up him showing me some of these. Jimi Hendrix was a big one, the Doors. He's a huge Pink Floyd guy, but I still to this day, and I always say this every time somebody brings up Pink Floyd, the songs I've heard I'm really impressed with. I think that they're unique in a way that no one else has been since them, and they have a totally unique sound. and I love all the songs I've listened to, but I've never gone through and like listened to their whole catalog, because that's generally what I do when I find somebody I like. I go back to the very beginning, even if I can find like an early demo or something, even before their first major label release, because I kind of like to hear the progression, their songwriting, how it changes, and how they morph over time. And I have yet to do that with Pink Floyd, but I mean, I Wish You Were Here, The Wall. I mean, I know all those ones kind of stuff, but I listened to a weird album called Animals one time. That's kind of a weird one.
Yeah. If you go back to the very early stuff, they did. I mean, they were always very unique. You could almost tell instantly that was Pink Floyd because nobody else sounded
right. Yes.
But they had quite a variety of styles. I mean, they developed, they evolved, or whatever. Yeah.
Because what are the two? Is it Gilmour and Waters?
Yeah, Roger Waters and David Gilmour.
Okay, and those are the two. Are they both guitar players, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Okay, and both vocalists.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why some Pink Floyd songs sound different than others because of the. Okay. I've never seen the movie The Wall. Still haven't watched that. Yeah. I heard that's bizarre. That's an acid trip on its own.
You had to be to appreciate The Wall. You had to be a child of the '60s.
That's why sometimes they'll still play it. Like you'll see theater will play it, and it's like, I bet if I walk in there, it's all going to be like guys in their 60s and 70s.
You'll smell some patchouli.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all the ex-hippies and stuff. Yeah, but I mean, so Pink Floyd I'm not as familiar with. Jimi Hendrix, I pretty much have heard his whole catalog. Big fan of his. The Doors, out of those first three you mentioned, though, the Doors, that's probably my favorite. And have you seen any of these live, by the way? Mm-hmm. You've seen all three of these?
Let's see.
There's no way you saw Hendrix live.
Yeah, I saw Jimi Hendrix.
Shut up, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
At the Arizona Veterans Memorial Coliseum, which is where the state fair is.
What, he was what, known for 4 or 5 years before he died?
Yeah.
Like as far as him playing live for big groups of people? I mean, and you got to see him during that.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, I got to see a Deep Purple. I got to see a bunch of Jethro Tull. Mm-hmm. I really like Jethro Tull.
There's another one that my dad got me into.
His live shows he's very theatrical, which back then nobody, I mean, other than Alice Cooper, nobody was theatrical.
Yeah.
They had just released the Thick as a Brick album.
Okay.
Which was basically one
long song,
one whole story, and you got to buy the album to read the newspaper. It's it's quite
I have it.
Quite a story.
I have that one. Yeah,
but I hadn't heard it, and when he came out again, this was at the Arizona Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Phoenix. They came out, and he goes, he basically just introduced himself in the band. They started playing, and they basically played the entire Aqualung album, which was the album before.
Probably their most well-known.
One of their biggest sellers.
Yeah.
And we thought, it was like an hour probably doing that. And he goes, and I'm thinking, that's it, the concert's over.
Yeah.
He goes, now for our second number.
Our first number was an hour long.
They did Thick as a Brick, and they played it for like an hour.
Oh my gosh.
But during Thick as a Brick, and again, you need to read the newspaper, but there's a part in there, and if your dad will remember this, I don't know if you will, but there's a part where he's playing, and he's dressed up in that old, like an Englishman from the 1800s or something, and he's got the flute standing on one leg.
Yeah.
And there's a grand piano. There's a guy playing the piano. There's a grand piano. Well, there's an old-fashioned. You don't really see it until all of a sudden you hear this phone ringing through the PA system. This old-fashioned London English-sounding phone. Mm-hmm. And the band stops, and he walks over. Ian Anderson, the lead guy, walks over, picks up the phone. You don't hear what he's saying, but he's talking. And he sets the receiver down, and he walks back over, and he goes, "There's an urgent phone call for Mr. Mike Nelson." And then they go back into playing.
And everybody's going, what?
Everybody in the audience is like... And all of a sudden, about, I don't know, a minute and a half later, here comes a guy in a complete scuba outfit with flippers and tanks. And he walks over to the piano and picks up the phone and talks on it for a minute, and then walks off stage.
And that was it?
That was it. Well...
Just to make people go, what in the world?
You got to be somebody that was watching black and white TV in the 60s.
Okay.
there was a TV show called Sea Hunt.
Okay, I remember the show.
Well, the character that was the main character, it was Mike Nelson.
So they just throw that stuff in there just to be funny. Yeah, they like, that's another one that I think is unique, right? Like I can't think of another classic rock style band that has such prominent flute. Yeah, and his vocals are very unique.
Something you heard in a rock and roll.
But it's just totally I probably in the last 5 years I've really started delving more into them, and I really like them a lot. Actually, even I go back to even some of the weirder like later stuff. Yeah. Like the Heavy Horses album or some of the, I know that's not that far later, but it sounds a lot different than like Aqualung or
he's
Thick as a Brick. But like going through the lyrics to Aqualung, the album, I'm going, well, this album's about a pedophile, right? I mean, and there's all this weird stuff. Was it the One-Eyed Mary or whatever? And just a weird story, But the music is fantastic. Yeah. So very, very cool. All right. So I usually ask favorite genre, but you pretty much already said, you're kind of a classic rock or blues.
And blues. I like blues. I like it just because most all blues players are pretty good guitar players.
Right. So you have a huge appreciation for guitar players. Yeah. But you never learned yourself.
I own a limited edition Joe Bonamassa guitar.
Ooh, you probably don't want to play that thing.
That came with. I get to do a meet and greet, and he'll sign it, and it's got a letter of authenticity. It was number whatever of 400 or whatever it is. Yeah. And but I bought it right before COVID, and of course now I'm still how many years later I'm still haven't got to do the meet and greet and have it signed.
Right. So. You still haven't done it.
Yeah.
If there's a.
Yeah. Like every once in a while, I'll call the lady in Florida that runs the fan club, and. She remembers me as soon as I call. She remembers. Oh yeah.
It's like you still haven't done this.
Check. Well, because he's. It was a couple of years after COVID before he actually started doing meet and greets again. And then he was going to do a show in Vegas, and I go, I really don't want to go. I said, you know what? I'll drive there and do the meet and greet just to get the guitar signed.
Yeah.
And they only allow a certain number of people to do the meet and greet because they don't want to, keep him there for 2 hours after the show and whatnot. Right. And so the meet and greet there's full, so I'm still waiting. So
someday.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever try to learn, or you think it's, you still got time?
Yeah.
I mean, you could kind of teach yourself.
If I ever retire, slow down.
Yeah. Or I mean, even in your downtime, like the time you're saying where you get time at night to watch TV for a little bit or something, you could just be.
I'm trying to devote my downtime now. This could open up a whole new subject, but I'm writing a book.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Is it about Michael? Or
it's about 15 years at Neverland.
Okay. Nice.
And I'd say I'm about a third of the way through it. It took me a while to get started because it's one thing I did not inherit from my dad, his ability. He edited his own newspaper.
Yeah.
And and then when we moved to Arizona, he actually worked for the United States Congress, and he wrote speeches. And
wow,
I mean, he was a talented. Yeah, that's something I did not pick up on. I started. I'm like, okay, I gotta do this book. I got to do this book. Once upon a time.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, I spent a year just like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I don't know where to start. I don't know. I'm not gonna do it. And then I said. I just started writing down topics. Like I said, okay, holidays. Mm-hmm. Well, I got several Christmas stories, so I just started writing down Christmas stories, and then I'd think of a name for that particular Christmas story, like the hot air balloon thing, or me getting a Santa suit, or whatever. And then Thanksgiving. Well, remember that there was one year where we were told that Michael was home, but nobody had to work Thanksgiving, and we're like, that's kind of weird. Right. And then the next day. This is before cell phones. I had a pager.
That's putting it back.
I got a pager. I got a page from MJJ Productions in Los Angeles with a 911. And the day before was, I don't know if you were there now, but when Mark Biancanello had an accident on Figueroa Mountain Road and he was hurt bad.
Oh no, I don't remember that.
And I thought maybe something happened to him.
Okay.
And I got back home. And I call, and she goes, she was all cheerful on there, and, hey, what are you doing? I said, this doesn't sound like a 911 call. And she started laughing. She goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm guessing I'm going back to the ranch.
Why was that? Because it had been a day with nobody there?
Well, she said, well, would you mind, when Michael let everybody know that they didn't have to work Thanksgiving, Gary, who was his, I don't know if you remember Gary, but Gary was normally was a driver.
Yeah.
Well, Gary I think she said had relatives in Texas. Anyway, wherever he had relatives, he flew there, and he was already there.
Oh, wow.
So she goes, would you mind driving Michael and his kids to the Havenhurst house, which is the original Jackson home in Encino?
Okay.
Would you mind driving Michael and his kids down there for Thanksgiving? And I'm like, be my honor.
Right.
So I got dressed in my, the uniform that we wore, and security had the limo out front, filled up and clean, and so just let them know, let somebody in the house know you're here, and they'll let Michael know. And so I drove him down there, and that was.
Did you have to hang on the car? Or did you get to go and have Thanksgiving dinner?
That's another one of the fans' favorites, and one of my favorites. I said, normally do you go over the San Marcos Pass, or do you go down 101? He goes, you're driving, whatever you want to do. And I said, it's still daylight. I said, we'll go over the pass. It's a little bit shorter, but I said, come back. I think we'll come back the other way. He goes, okay, safety first.
Yeah.
So I take him down there. They get out, and the security guy says, okay, I'm going to move a couple of cars. I want you to pull out and then back in. That way, whenever Michael wants to leave, there's nobody blocking you, and you're ready to just go. I said, okay.
Yeah.
So I turned the car around, backed it in, or he wanted me to back it, and I'm back in the back. They really didn't make a mess, but I just went back there to make sure everything was, presentable for the trip home. And now I'm back there watching a movie, and Michael comes out.
You're like watching a movie in the car?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And he goes, he kind of had a look on his face like,
what are you doing?
No, it was more like he was ready to leave. I mean, he'd only been there like 15 minutes. Because there was a lot of family, and I don't know.
Right.
I'm sure he just gets overwhelmed sometimes. But,
yeah.
But he, and I'm like, he didn't really say anything right away, and I'm thinking, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And he goes, do you want to come in and have Thanksgiving dinner with me and my family?
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, I would absolutely love to.
You're like, who on the planet gets to do something like this?
But I also said to myself in the very next sentence was, you can't go in there. You just have, it's not I said, he really just wants somebody to run interference for him.
Right. Yeah.
And I said, I said, I really appreciate the offer, but I said, I think I'll just hang out here. Okay.
Wow.
Well, then he came out, he checked on me again, and then he sent the chef out with a big plate of food.
Nice.
Then he came out and checked on me again, and I'm thinking, he just really wants to get the heck out.
Yeah. Maybe that gave him an opportunity to leave every once in a while.
But it was a big night for me. Just the fact that he came out and invited me in, I thought that was a pretty big deal. So
well, that shows the kind of person he was too,
But anyway, I came up with a bunch of these different topics, celebrities, and of course I'll have to run this by an attorney to see how many of these celebrity stories I can tell.
Exactly.
I mean, they're all, everything. There's nothing negative in my book, but and I think I'm gonna self-publish. I talked to somebody about. I talked Bill Whitfield. He was one of Michael's main bodyguards for the last couple of years he was alive, and he wrote a book. And he said he went to like 20 or more publishers, and nobody wanted anything to do with it because there's anything negative in it.
Oh, see, those vultures.
And one of them even offered him $1 million to go back and rewrite it and put a bunch of trash in it. And if you knew Bill Whitfield, you'd be surprised that somebody would, because Bill Whitfield, his neck's about this big around. He could bench press my car, And when you don't have to talk to him for a few minutes to get the understanding that he was very loyal and dedicated to Michael. And I'm surprised he just didn't grab this guy by the neck and choke him. But anyway, so and if they don't like a story, they'll tell you to change it, or if they don't like pictures you want to put in it, they'll tell you no, or they don't like the title. And I said that does it. I don't care what it costs. I'm going to self-publish because I have all that. It's my story. It's like what Bill Whitfield told me. He said, this isn't. It's about Michael, but it's not about Michael. It's about me working for Michael.
Yeah.
And that's basically what this book is for me.
Yeah, you're the only one that can tell that specific
it's
story.
Like, I'm not changing anything for anybody.
Right.
It is what it is. Everything
That's
I'm
awesome.
saying is true, and everything I said is positive.
Right.
It's like, you know.
Right. How much longer do you think you have on that?
I really hope that this winter I get a little bit more done, and then I got a couple people I'm going to send it to proofread because I'm no good at that kind of stuff.
Right.
And my goal is to have it ready for next summer, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But
okay. Wow, that'll be cool.
Yeah. At least I'm moving forward on it. So.
Yeah. That's all you can do.
Yeah. And I really, whenever I attend these fan events like this, I just went and did this thing up in Canada with Brad Sudbury. I got 5,000 comments in the last couple of days, from fans all over. I'm like,
yeah.
I need to get this done. I already got a bunch of them sold,
Yeah. That's what I say. That'll be a bestseller. I mean, it will. Because like I said, I mean, as it is, there's very few people that have firsthand experience like that as it is.
Yeah.
But even you, or I think you had a position out there that no one's ever had, like really in that capacity. You know what I mean? Like people did some of those things, or they had some of those roles for maybe a little while. But I mean, you were out there for how long did you work out there total?
Almost 15. Well, 15 years with the first 2 years I was basically just a consultant, but so probably 13 years full time. Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. That's why it's better.
And I developed a pretty good, and I always try, whenever I go to tell these stories, I said, I don't want anybody to leave this room or even start listening to my stories. Make it, I don't want you to think I'm trying to make you think I was like Michael's best friend.
Right.
I said, he treated me better than some of my best friends.
Right, exactly.
I said, I don't want to say always, but 80% of the time I called him Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
And I still do. And I said, but we developed a very good relationship. Yeah. And I think, and over years, I think I got an understanding, and I'm not saying anything negative about anybody who worked for him. There was a great team of people out there. Mm-hmm. But I really got an understanding that what he wanted for his guests, and I think Gail really got this too, is he wanted them to come away with like a 5-star resort experience.
Right.
He wanted,
right.
And so over the time, I started being more involved. I don't know if you remember the little papers we used to hand out was kind of an itinerary on Neverland stationery. Well, they didn't. I was the one that came up with that.
Oh yeah.
I said, well, first of all, it'd be a nice little souvenir. Plus, we kind of want them to know what we're doing. We can't. A lot of times when people go to some place, well, there's no place like that, but if you go to an amusement park, it's a free for all. You just go do whatever you want. Well, we weren't staffed where there was people everywhere, so you could go everywhere. We kind of had to have it organized. So I said, "What?" And we did have it organized, but we didn't give them any kind of an idea. So I thought, well, we'll make this piece of paper and we'll print up 100 copies of it or whatever, and it'll be a souvenir they can take home with them or whatever.
Right.
And so over the years, I think I just developed, and then next thing you know, I'm wearing a Santa Claus suit. I didn't have to put the Easter Bunny outfit on. Mike, you remember Mike that worked for me, Mike?
Mike. I don't know.
Mike Stites.
I don't know if I ever met him.
Well.
Is he the one that you knew from your Carney days, and then he came? Okay. Yeah. I might have met him once, and he married, had some kids.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he got to be the Easter Bunny one year. I said, I don't think that Easter Bunny outfit will fit me, but I know the Santa Claus suit was made for me. So.
Right. Do you still have it? Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Bush actually delivered it to the ranch and made me put it on to see if it fit.
That's so awesome.
And I said, of course, at that time I was never thinking. I thought I'll never leave here, and I, of course, never imagined in my wildest imagination that Michael would die before I would.
Yeah.
I told Michael Bush, I said, if I ever leave here, I'm taking this with me. And he goes, well, it's custom made for you, so it's your suit. So,
yeah.
So I kept it at the ranch because I said, I'm not taking it home because it could be Christmas in July, Right. He could just say, hey, put your Santa Claus suit.
Yeah. Never know, right? Oh, my gosh. Oh, well, I'm definitely looking forward to that book. Feel free to tell the story about you getting hit by a train on there too.
Yeah,
You don't even have to credit me if you don't want to. All right, so we got a few more music things before we head into politics. But so I'm sure it's probably gonna be one of these ones you've already mentioned. But like, what would be like the most influential for you, like a band or an artist, something that's impacted your life?
Well, that's a tough one. It would be for a couple of different musically. I would say probably Santana, because he was
okay.
When you listen, for some of these people, listening to their music, it's when you see them do these intimate interviews and get to know a little bit about what's in their head that makes you. I mean, I always liked Santana, but when you listen to him, I mean, he's very spiritual, very just and he thinks that we should have a Michael Jackson Day.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
like on the calendar, kind of thing. Yeah. Hey, another paid holiday. I'll take it. He
speaks very highly of Michael.
Well, didn't they work together on?
They did, and I tell people, I said, there's only, the only person on earth that could actually verify this would be Michael. So nobody can verify it, but I swear, I read an interview online with Carlos Santana, and they had just finished. I forget what the tour was. I think the Soul Sacrifice tour. Anyway, they were, one of the questions. What do you, what's that? He says, "Well, I want to spend some time at home with my family." And I said, "I'm going to go in the studio and do a little work." He goes, "I'd really like to do some work with Mr. Bob Dylan and Mr. Michael Jackson." And he said that in this interview, and I thought, now that's a sentence I never thought I would read. I never thought I'd read a sentence with Bob Dylan and Michael Jackson in the same sentence. I never thought I'd read a sentence of Santana saying he wants to work with Mike. And I actually printed it out, and I put it in Michael's office.
Oh, really?
Now I'm guessing that it's very possible that they'd already, if those two guys wanted to work together, they have other ways besides me. They have people, they're people or whatever.
But you could have been the one.
But I said, I like to think, because I like both of them very much, I like to think that I had a part in. But
what was the song that they did together?
Whatever Happens.
Whatever Happens. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Is that on History?
No, it's on.
Or is that
Invincible? I think.
Oh, it's on the last one.
I think it's Invincible.
Okay. Yeah, I love that song.
Yeah.
Because that's a good one. Wow. So that's all because of you. Way to go, man.
Yeah. And of course, Michael.
We'll assume it was all because of you. Anyway.
Michael didn't influence me musically. It's funny because the fans will ask me, "Well, how long have you been a Michael Jackson fan?" And I said, I'm not actually a Michael Jackson fan like you think. I said, I didn't really become a Michael Jackson fan until probably a year or two after I started working for him. And found out what he was really about.
Became a fan of the person more than.
I said, when I grew up, all the guys I hung out with, if you listen to Jackson 5, you liable to get beat up.
Right.
I said, but I was into music enough to know that there was some serious talent there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my genre of music. So I said, but after I got to know him and what he was all about, and I read a little bit about him and just working for him and talking to him and stuff, it's like, and then one time, and this is a song I think it's a beautiful song and it has a lot of meaning, but every time I hear it, it almost brings me to tears, and it's not because of the Earth song, which it is.
That is my all-time favorite Michael Jackson song.
It's a very, very important song.
Yeah.
But what really, my memory is, and you can relate to this because you've been to Neverland many times, Michael had come home, and there weren't any guests there. I don't think any guests were arriving until the next day. And I saw him in his golf cart pull up to the theater. Well, I knew that there was no projections there because I always hear security always lets us know, and I don't know why he lets us know, but he just lets everybody on the radio know.
Yeah.
And I don't think that projections was coming until the next day either. So, so I just went over, and he'd been gone for several months. He was in New York working on the History album.
Oh, okay.
And now the History album had not been released yet.
Yeah.
And so I walk over to the theater, and just as I walk up to the front door to go in to tell him there's no projections, the door opens and he walks out. And he gives me a big old hug. And that's one thing I tell people, of course, the fans, I don't know if they like the story, but they're all jealous because I said, when Michael Jackson hugs you, you know that it's a sincere, you know, he means it.
Yeah.
But I said, he gave me a big hug because they hadn't seen him in 6 or 8 months.
Yeah.
And he immediately starts talking about Earth Song.
Which wasn't even released yet.
Which wasn't released yet. So, but his eyes, his voice and his eyes were just like hypnotizing because he was so into it.
Yeah.
And I really just wanted to stop him and go, I have no idea what you're talking about.
But I'm glad you're happy about it.
But he was so excited to share this with me.
Right.
I think he just wanted to share it with somebody. We talked about just being in New York and working on this and that, but it led up to Earth Song, and he's just going on. And I can't interrupt him. I don't want to interrupt him because he's just so excited about sharing this with me. I'm thinking, if he ever shuts up, I got to ask him, hey, can you burn me a copy of that?
So I can hear it.
Can we go listen to it? I have no idea.
Yeah. Wow.
So I was all excited, but and then, and after working for him for a while and listening to some of his songs, like Man in the Mirror, I mean, he's got some songs that there's such a deep meaning and so important and something that everybody living on the planet can benefit from. And it's like, so that was, for somebody that wasn't the type of music I listened to, it was influential.
Yeah, and I know it's not the most popular opinion, but I mean, to me, history, I know the one disc is greatest hits, and there's the second disc, it's all new stuff. That second disc of all new stuff is my favorite Michael album, like hands down. And I think it's because I like lyrics that are hard and in your face and are meaning something, and I listen to like Earth Song, and it doesn't mean like I agree necessarily, like I'm not like an animal rights activist or anything like that, but you can just hear the power and the passion in that song, and that's why it's my favorite song. It's mainly the end. I mean, it's the chorus, the that just gets me every time, but then at the end where he's just kind of machine gunning like all these lyrics at the end of what about this and this and this, and it's like, man, it's like, dude, but like that whole album, like They Don't Care About Us and what's the one, Tabloid Junkie, right? Some of those songs that are just so personal, and he really started firing back. Money, yep, exactly. Or even Scream that he did with Janet, I mean, that song was like, leave me alone, man. Just get off my back, So it was more of a kind of emotionally charged album for me. I mean, I like all of them, even up to Invincible. I thought was great too, which most people don't even know that one exists, seemingly. It's just like, oh yeah, we had one after that. Yeah, there's some great songs on there. Okay, so all right. Well, then lastly, you probably already said these. Your top 5. We went through. Was that kind of your top 5? We had Pink Floyd.
Yeah, Pink Floyd, Joe Bonamassa, Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Okay.
Santana, and then Michael.
Okay. All right. Then, if you can do it, if not, I'll just hit you up later and ask. Give me 2 or 3 favorites from each one of those, starting with Pink Floyd. If you could pick 2 or 3 favorites.
Pink Floyd. Well, the album that I highly recommend you, it's Alive in, I think, I'm not going to say where.
Okay.
But the first time I saw it was on the Jumbotron. The Jumbotron.
Oh, at the ranch. Oh, nice.
The Jumbotron crew put it on when we were doing some,
Okay.
I had an Eagles thing, but I guess they had just done some work with the Eagles. Like, no more Eagles. So they put this Pulse. It's called Pulse. It's a live. Okay. It's a 2-hour live show.
Okay.
And every version of everything they did in that was, but I think Comfortably Numb.
Okay.
There's a couple of them when David Gilmour just starts out with this long, slow guitar thing. So Comfortably Numb, Wish You Were Here. I don't know. It's hard to pick one.
Yeah. Okay.
That's one of my go-tos on my phone when I'm flying somewhere. I'll put on the Bose headphones, and I can make a 2-hour flight in a matter of seconds.
Nice. Just get lost in it.
Joe Bonamassa.
Yeah. I'm glad you're pronouncing that, by the way, because I've seen that guy's name written many times.
Yeah, it's got.
I'm I'm not even going to try that one.
Yeah, it looks like the whole alphabet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to pick. I really like, because when you see his live version, especially when you see the acoustic, he does a thing called "Woke Up Dreaming," and the acoustic version, you can see, you just think that either that guitar or his hands are going to catch on fire. He just
that's so awesome.
Yeah,
you always want to make a video like that, where it looked like that. You're just shredding so hard, and then all of a sudden your hands burst.
Well, it starts out real, like you almost think it's going to be like it's got a little bit of mixture of a classic guitar almost. It's like some really nice, just slow strumming and whatnot. And then he just goes into the so probably that would probably be from him. Stevie Ray Vaughan. I really like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and normally I wouldn't pick anybody that would try to do a cover of Jimi Hendrix, but Stevie Ray Vaughan does a cover of Jimi Hendrix's Voodoo Child.
Oh, that's a good one.
That it's actually, probably, dare I say, better than the original.
I'll have to check it out. I love the Hendrix song, but I've never heard the Stevie Ray Vaughan one. I'll have to check it out.
Let's see.
And Santana. Yeah.
Oh man, I can't even remember the name of the song, but and I just listened to it not coming here, but from driving from Arizona over here, I just listened to it. The Soul Sacrifice. It's recorded live in Spain. At the very first song, I think it's something like "Angels Are All Around Us" or something, but it's just. It's got a real nice salsa Latin beat to it, and he does this little introduction and talks about angels, and he's not, like I said, he's a pretty spiritual guy. And,
is that earlier like 70s Santana or
no? This is fairly I'd say in the last 10 years.
Okay, fairly recent then.
Yeah,
because he was big in the 70s.
He might have done that song before. I'd never heard it before until this Soul Sacrifice.
Okay. What's funny? There's like two different kinds of Santana people.
Yeah.
Like there's the early, like late 60s, early 70s when he first started doing stuff, and then there's like my generation that knows him from the Supernatural album, where he had all those, like every song had a different guest on it. Like he did the one with the guy from Matchbox 20 that was really popular. He did some songs with Everlast.
I can't remember the drummer that he had in Woodstock. I saw an interview on some like late night, like David Letterman or something back in the day. And it was on an anniversary of Woodstock. I don't remember what anniversary it was, but anyway, the guy's first name is Mike. I can't remember his last name, but if you watch video footage from Woodstock and it shows this drummer, he looks like he's not even old enough to drive, which he was only like, I think 16 or 17.
That's awesome.
I think he said 7 in this interview, because the interviewer said, "So what's life been like since Woodstock? It had to be like big, you hit the big times." And he goes, the guy looked at him like, let's see, I was 17, I was performing in front of 500,000 people, and it was my first paid gig.
Yeah.
He goes, "It's been all downhill ever since."
That's awesome.
He goes,
"That was the highlight."
He goes, "It don't get much better than that."
That's so cool. Oh man, that's awesome.
And then for Michael, well, he's got some good songs with the guitar work in it, but I think the song that I really like, "Man in the Mirror."
Yeah,
because I just think that message is
Yeah, that seems to hit. I've had people on this podcast before, then they'll say that that's their favorite one, and I know that like Pat Silva, that's always been his favorite song. He used to sing it out there when we were out there. Whenever it come on, he'd get all into it, and which is funny because I love the song, but to me it's never been like one of my favorite for whatever reason. Even though the Bad album was literally the first piece of music I ever owned myself. It was the first cassette tape I ever bought. Was the Bad album, and it was mainly because of the song "Bad" that I heard on the radio, and I was like, "Oh, I got to get some of that," because I came in like after the Thriller and But of course now I've gone back and I do listen to those and Off the Wall and all those ones, which I love. Off the Wall. A lot of people just kind of skip over that one, but that's a great album too. But so Man in the Mirror, huh? Nice.
Yeah, and if you ever get a chance. Well, I don't know if you ever met Brad Sundberg. He used to come to the ranch, he did all that. Well, he does this thing called In the Studio, and he goes all over the world to different music studios. He does about 5 or 6 of them a year. And Michael fans, he sells tickets to it because there's a lot of expense involved in putting this thing on.
Yeah.
But this kind of stuff just totally fascinates me. And there's another guy that has got a bunch of YouTube videos. He never worked with Michael, but he breaks it down. He's got the computer program that all those sound engineers use, the Pro Tools by Apple, or Mac Pro Tools, or whatever it's called. And but they'll break it down, and when you hear these guys talk about what it was like to work in the studio with him, his vocals, he would do stuff in a couple hours that would take most musicians several days.
Yeah.
And of course, this is now everything's digital, everything's auto-tune. But he was doing auto-tune kind of work before auto-tune was invented.
Wow.
Because they would say he would sing like 12 different tracks for a vocal, and every one of them would be absolutely perfect. And there's nobody that can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. So if you ever get a chance to see some of those, it's.
Can you find that stuff online, or?
Yeah, I'll have to send you a link. You have to text me or email me and remind me. The one guy that's on YouTube that never worked with Michael, but he dissects and shows you Brad stuff. I don't know if he does. He does a Christmas thing online, which I just did with him a couple of weeks ago. But that's where we mostly talk about Neverland. And if he ever does one in LA and you can come down to it, I'll make sure and get you tickets.
Oh man, that'd be awesome. Yeah. That'd be so cool.
And he had this thing that he did, this Christmas thing he did. I should have sent you, because he sends me a link. I mean, he charges to see it, but he sends me a link. He says, share it with anybody you want.
Yeah.
But he's got interviews, pre-recorded interviews with me on Zoom meetings.
Okay.
He's got a couple with Violet, a couple with Judy from the house.
Oh, okay.
A couple for Dave that used to work with the horses a long time ago. And some really, really good stories. But
that's a bunch of names I have. Are you still in contact with a lot of these people?
Yeah, I'm still in contact with Hadi Nam, who was the chef. I don't know if you remember her. Dan calls me every once in a while. I talk to Violet every once in a while.
Nice.
Let's see. That's about it. Yeah.
I always wondered about
Evie.
these people.
I see Evie every once in a while.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you probably heard her name.
I think
she didn't come to the ranch too often.
No, I think I did meet her once though. I remember when I met her, it was like, oh, I've been hearing your name for years. Yeah. Like you're the big boss. You're like the head.
She's such an awesome person. She's one of those people that no matter what is on your mind, she can talk to you for hours about it and make you leave feeling much better. I mean, she's great.
She's got a gift.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I think about a lot of those people all the time that we used to work out there with. There's some really cool people out there. Yeah. We had a lot of fun out there.
There's a bunch of them back out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've actually been out there a few times since the new owner took over.
Okay.
And
because that's all hush hush kind of stuff going on out there. Nobody really knows. Everybody else asked me like I know. I was like, I don't know.
Well, I got to tell you, this was when this guy bought. Now, this was a guy that knew Michael and was friends with Michael.
Right. I did know that, and that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, and I thought, and I met him several times out there. Mm-hmm. I knew he had money because one time he came up in a helicopter, and the next time he came up, he brought some more of his family. And there was so many people, they brought 2 helicopters.
Oh, wow.
I go, if you can come up here in 2 helicopters, you must have some money. But he was also one of those guys that we would go from ride to ride, and he would, like Michael, he would, can we please go? Can we ride this next?
Yeah.
And every time he got off ride, they'd thank you. I mean, just
real polite,
super polite, cordial.
Yeah.
I mean, just very respectful of the place and of you, and and thankful to be there and all that.
Yeah.
And anyway, when he bought the place, I had no idea how to get a hold of him, but I did a little research and found the parent company that he owned, and I sent a cover letter and my resume. And I wasn't looking for a job. I just basically said, I think I started out with, you probably don't remember me, but I worked at Neverland for 15 years for Mr. Jackson, and I said, I'm not asking you what you're doing with the place, what your plans are. I just want to let you know that I was there for a long time, and I'm familiar with the property, and if you ever the railroad track's still there. I said, I basically just kind of like if there's anything in my job, my talent book that I can help you with, let me know. And I got the nicest email a couple days later. I've never received an email from a billionaire.
Take that off your bucket list.
So I was pretty excited about that, and he was super, super nice. He goes, Big. He called me Big. I said, Big Al, I remember you.
Yeah.
You were so nice to me and my family, and Michael would, have you come out at the last minute and take care of us, and blah 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 blah. So anyway, I've been out there a few times, and he's doing a very nice job as he's keeping the place for his son and grandchildren to live at. And
okay.
So and he's doing some events, kind of like Michael did. He's just not public. I mean, he's not
right.
Not that Michael really publicized it, but
no, it was never a money making thing. Yeah. And you think this new guy, that's not his intention at all. He's never going to, because a lot of people say, they should turn it into like a museum and the public can come and.
And that just never would have worked. I don't want to say it never. I'm sure that with the money the estate had, they could have figured out something. I mean, I know that the people who live out there wouldn't want all that traffic, but I said, I came up with that. I didn't even go to college for 20 years trying to learn how to be a smart businessman. I said, you build a welcome center in Bealton and put them on a bus. You bring them out like 60 or 70 at a time and let them stay for a few hours.
There you go.
I said, you could sell tickets for $5,000 a piece. You'd be sold out for 10 years.
I bet, yeah.
I said, and just do it, 2 or 3 days a week, or 2 or 3 days a week. I mean, there's things that could have happened, but
going back to the politeness of those people, it's funny because we got kind of both out there, right? You'd have, and it was funny. It's a lot of times, I won't say all the time, a lot of the time out there, some of the biggest people would be the biggest jerks, and then vice versa. But people like that, real polite. But then we had the kind of people that are like, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to say names, but I'm sure you remember this incident where they drove the golf cart through the gate. Yeah. And then we're like, what are you doing? Like, and there was kind of like, well, you're going to have to this. And then she's like, do you know who I am? We're like, yeah, we know who you are. There's still rules out here. You can't. And I think that was before they drove it through the gate. Yeah. Like we were trying to tell them, you can't be driving that over here. You can't be doing that. And sure enough, boom, right through the gate. And I was like, oh my gosh, what in the world? But it's funny because people have asked me before what the coolest person I ever met out there was. And I
get asked that a lot.
Yeah, right. And my answer kind of surprises them because it was Kirk Cameron.
Oh, yeah.
Of all people, right? And he was out there. It wasn't for a big event. He was just out there with his wife and like his four of his kids with him at the time. He was the nicest guy. He was like, he's talking to us. He's real polite. I was taking him around, kind of showing him stuff. And then the other one that I always say was, it's a group. It was when, and you were out there for this too. You probably remember it was when Macaulay Culkin was dating the girl from That 70s Show. Mm-hmm. So he was out there with her, and then Seth Green and Fez from That 70s Show was out there. The four of them were out there. And that's the only time that we've ever had somebody say, like we were running the Sea Dragon, and one of them, I think it was Seth Green, he goes, hey, how many, because there was like me, Javier, and Julio were all right there. We were running the ride because we were going around ride. And he goes, how many of you does it take to run that ride? And we said, just one. They said, well, can the other two of you come ride with us? And I'm sure we weren't allowed to do it, but we're like, yeah. So we're like riding rides with them. And then after that, we're just going around, and one of us would run the ride and the other two would ride with them. And they loved it. They had a blast. They're like, oh, this is so fun, And it's just like, that's one of my fun memories of that. It's like, oh my gosh. But then the other one, and I guess I'm going down memory lane here, but the other two stories that I these are my two stories that I always tell. I mean, you got millions of them. These are my main two because people think they're funny, and I don't remember if you were there for these ones or not. So there was one year, in Christmas time, he would get a bunch of rides that he didn't normally have on the property. He brought out just for the Christmas time. Well, there was one called the Kite Flyer. Yep. Do you remember this one where it was a kiddie ride, but you'd lay on your stomach and it would just kind of go around. Well, him and his kids were riding it one day. And he was going around, and he would pass us on the thing, and he kept saying, "It's jerking! It's jerking!" Like every time he was trying to, because he was worried like it wasn't working right or something. And we're like, okay. And then we got him off, And he gets off and he comes up to me and he goes, "Here, let me show you." And he grabs my shoulders and he starts doing this, like shaking my shoulders. He goes, "This is what it was doing." And I'm like, trying not to laugh, like, oh my gosh, Michael Jackson is shaking me right now. Like, not like in an angry way, but he wanted me to feel like what that was. Yeah. And then the other one was on the super slide one time, and him and his kids were getting ready to go, we were at the bottom and they were going to climb up, and there was a daddy long legs. There's just a daddy long leg. I mean, we used to get tarantulas out there, right? All kinds of stuff out there. It was a daddy long legs, and it was just walking across the thing. And I'm a catch and release kind of guy. I don't like to kill spiders. I always, when they're in the house, I kept catching the cup, put them out. So I didn't want him to get stepped on. So I just let him crawl into my hand. And Michael was he could not believe what I was doing. He was like, "What? Aren't you scared? Aren't you scared?" I was like, "No, it's just a daddy long leg." He's like, "I'd be scared. I wouldn't want to pick that up." And I was like, I just thought that was so funny, man. But I mean, how many people can say this stuff like that? Got to do that. I mean, it's such a blessing to be able to work out there when I did. So,
Well, I'll have to tell you about my favorite guest. I get asked that question.
Oh yeah, yes.
So, and it's tough because there's great stories and experiences with and of course, like you said, there's a few that you think.
Yeah.
I can't remember who coined this phrase. It wasn't me, but it's like the difference between the guests is they call it fall into two categories. Either they look at it as a privilege to come out there, or they look at it as a right.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly it.
Yep.
And the people that saw it as a privilege were the most wonderful people you'd ever meet. Yeah. And there was people that were big stars that were like that. And you're like, oh man, this guy's awesome.
I told Brighton, I said, I don't know if you know this, but collectively at the ranch, we voted that you and your mom and dad, because they never brought, well, I shouldn't say never, but very seldom they bring any other people. Occasionally they brought one or two, but usually it was just the three of them. And I said, we voted you as the lowest maintenance guest we had.
Nice.
And I go, what really did it for me, one time it was your mom and dad's anniversary, and Eric liked to drink Coronas, and he had a few Coronas. And he says, hey, can you run me into whatever the closest town has a grocery store? And I said, what do you want? I go, well, it's our anniversary, and I wanted to have steak and lobster. I was going to go buy some steak and lobster. I said, just tell the kitchen what you want for dinner. And he goes, and God is my witness. He says, I don't expect Michael to buy a steak and lobster just because it's our anniversary. I go, wow. Well, let me tell you, there's some guests that come out here that when they come out, they want a case of Cristal wheat.
Right, exactly.
But my favorite guest, only because when I tell you the end of the story, it just did it for me. Well, and a lot of people, when I tell them this, they go, "Who?" They never heard.
Oh, okay.
Gregory Peck.
Oh yeah.
So Gregory Peck and his wife and I don't know who his son and daughter-in-law or daughter and son-in-law and grandkids were there. And the grandkids were in the park riding some rides. Gregory's wife, I think Vivian, I can't remember her name, but anyway, she was still at the house, and Gregory, he was getting up there in age, he wasn't getting around really well, and it was kind of a warm summer day. So him and I can't remember who was in the park. There was a couple other guys in the park. So, and the kiddie rides were all right around that area. They were all too close by. So him and I are sitting under this big oak tree, just talking. Because we can see all the kiddie rides from where we're sitting, and he just asked me, he said, how'd you wind up getting a job here? and I just basically one question, the answer led to another question, and we sat there and talked for like an hour.
Wow.
And it was basically him asking me more questions, and it just basically led to my entire life story.
Wow.
About starting out in the carnival business right out of high school, only planning to do it one summer. And here I am 30 years later. So
yeah.
And when he got up, I know you've met Michael as one of these kind of people. When they look you in the eye and shake your hand, you can tell how sincere they are.
Yeah.
He grabbed my hand, actually with both hands, and shook my hand for about 5 minutes, going, you are one fascinating person.
Wow.
Gregory Peck, this guy's an A-lister from the old days.
Right.
I mean, you list the movies he's been in. I mean, it's
this famous
classic,
guy thinks you're interesting.
Yeah. I'm just like,
that's how humbling is that? Wow. That's so cool.
And everybody on the ranch, the housekeepers, the people in the house, everybody they're just like, they are the nicest people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like it when people come out there and they're very thankful for the opportunity to come out there. And
that's awesome. All right, man. Well, how do you feel about politics? You a political guy? You kind of bury your head in the sand, or do you care about this kind of stuff?
I am kind of like some of the bands we talked about earlier. I've evolved quite a bit.
Okay.
I mean, from I don't want to say from one extreme to the other, but almost.
Okay.
Like I said, I grew up in my high school. I graduated in '72, so I definitely was there for the hippie era.
Right. And
it's
pretty liberal.
Very, very liberal. Burn your draft card kind of thing.
Right.
Although the year I was eligible for the draft, when I look back now, I kind of really wish I would have went in the military. But when I was eligible to go in the military, I was a punk. I mean, I would not have survived the military, I don't think.
Yeah.
And when I went in, because, like I said, when I was eligible, you still had to register. But when I was eligible to be drafted, they had just eliminated the draft. The Vietnam War was basically over. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were still people over there, and they were still, getting people out of there. But a friend of mine and I both were like, I don't know, a month or two late for, registering. And my dad, when we were in Montana owning a newspaper, he was involved in politics, and I didn't know back then, but he was involved in the Republican Party.
Oh, okay.
And I was, I guess Montana, it's all cowboys, they're all conservative.
Yeah.
But anyway, when I was 10 years old, I didn't care about politics. I didn't know what it was.
I would hope not.
But so when we moved to Arizona, my dad actually went to work, I guess because of his involvement in the Republican Party up there, he went to work for John Rhodes, he was Arizona's, like, at that time, absolute favorite. He was a congressman. He was a Republican.
Okay.
And but the Republicans and Democrats back then were totally different.
Oh, man. Night and day. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, almost in some instances, I'd say opposite. Some of their beliefs, it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't that
right?
Weren't they doing that first?
And they weren't that different from each other. They had some differences, of course. That's why they were different parties. But now they're like, polar opposites.
But one thing my dad, when we moved from Montana to Arizona, my dad loved to golf. I think that's one of the reasons we moved to Arizona. Mm-hmm. But he got a job working for the United States Congress for John Rhodes. He was administrative aide to John Rhodes. He wrote speeches and ran the Arizona office when Congress was in session, and John Rhodes was in Washington, D.C. And so as a little kid, I went to quite a few political. I didn't know what they were about. He just took me because whatever. I remember going. I was into CB radios as a young kid, and we had a base station at the house. And anyway, he was going to a party at Barry Goldwater's house. He had a big fancy house up on Camelback Mountain. And I knew that he was a ham radio, which is not the same as CB, but he was a ham radio guy. And so I was all excited. I got to go see he had a room off from his house that the whole one whole wall was glass that looked out over you're way up above Phoenix. I mean, it's gorgeous.
Wow.
And the whole room was all this ham radio equipment. And so anyway, I went to all these things. I had no idea what I was going to or why. But then, of course, when I got into high school and started hanging out with all the wrong crowd, it was all the the hippies and stuff. And so I had a very, very liberal. Most time I probably didn't even know why whatever I was protesting or forming my opinion of. I was just following the crowd,
which is the case most of the time. People are protesting.
But then I don't know what happened. When I got older, I really kind of turned around and went the other way.
Okay.
I think it was because, and this might sound maybe a little too simple to change your whole political outlook, but I really, and I'll believe this till the day I die. I think that if you look at just the United States in general, the people live in it, and how we look at life, our morals have gone about as far down the sewer as you can get.
Yep.
And I believe that a lot of that and I know this is probably going to make a lot of people unhappy, but I think a lot of it has to do with some of our liberal views on certain things.
Oh, I'm right there with you, man.
It's like,
yeah.
Well, everything goes.
Yeah.
Well, but it's not everything goes. Everything
Right.
goes as long as you agree with me. That's the way that
Yep.
they don't realize that's. But I remember telling somebody the other day about my political views. I remember when I was fairly young, probably I'm going to say still in grade school, and I was golfing with my dad. Of course, when I got into high school and started hanging out with all the, the hippies, I quit golfing.
They would have disowned you.
Yeah. Went from playing on the grass to smoking it. Yeah. So, and I was a pretty good golfer too. I think I was about. By the time I got into high school, I was about what they call a bogey golfer, which is, I guess, pretty good for a young kid.
Yeah.
Well, back then anyway. And but anyway, I remember when I was in grade school and going golfing with my dad, and there'd be a foursome, me, my dad, and then two other people, and I'd say, well, who's that guy? And he didn't say. And well, what's he do? Anyway, he works for Senator so and so. I go, well, he's a Democrat.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad telling me this when we're out there golfing. He looked at me and he goes, another one of those moments where you don't think about how smart your dad is until after he's gone.
Yeah.
But he said, just because we have different political beliefs doesn't mean we can't go out and play golf together.
Right.
He goes, the whole idea behind politics is if you're a Republican and you're dealing with a Democrat on whatever the issue is, you have to compromise, and ultimately what you want to do is what you think is best for your constituents.
Yeah.
You can't just say this is what I want and that I'm not giving in at all.
Yeah.
And
we've lost that.
Yeah. It's like, if somebody disagrees with you, and I'm not saying both sides are guilty of this. I'm not saying that if I'm a conservative, I'm going to say the Republicans aren't guilty of it. They're absolutely guilty of it. Mm-hmm. That nobody wants to compromise, and not only do they not want to compromise, they really want to beat their opponent over the head with a baseball bat.
Yeah. In some cases, they want them dead.
Yeah.
If you believe this, you should be dead.
And it's just not. It's just not acceptable. It's
right.
It really, sometimes Thanksgiving we talk about one thing we're thankful for, and I always go, I'm thankful that I'm old.
I'm sure that makes the table laugh.
I'm not sure how much longer I can do this.
Yeah. But see, the sad thing is, it seems like a lot of the younger generation that are coming up tend not to think like you think.
Yeah.
So as the older people get and they start dying off, and then the new generations come in, I'm wondering what the world's going to be like, or the country's going to be like when my grandkids are even in their teenage years. I mean, I guess that might not be that soon. I mean, our oldest is already talking about they're probably going to have a baby in the next couple of years, maybe. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just so. And that's what I mean about it changing so much.
Yeah.
It used to be. Yeah, we have some differing political views as Republicans and Democrats or whatever, and now it's like, it's just, I mean, it's like and it's on both sides. They'll look at the other side as Satan, like we need to purge the earth of you or whatever. It's like, what in the world is happening?
There's a guy on the radio over in Phoenix. I think he does a podcast. I think you can pick it up anywhere. Mike Broomhead. It's hard to.
That's a good name.
Yeah, it's kind of hard not to miss that or forget that name. But
yeah,
he makes no bones about the fact that he is very conservative. Mm-hmm. But he also makes like when Biden first got elected, and everybody's bashing him about whatever.
Yeah.
He goes. I want you to understand something. That's our president.
Yeah,
I absolutely do not. He says, there's people out here that just are waiting for him to fail. He goes, I do not want him to fail.
Right.
He's the president of the country.
Because it affects us.
He goes, I'm a conservative, and I disagree with a lot of his stuff, and I disagree strongly with a lot of his stuff.
Right.
But he's the president of the United States. I want him to succeed. I want him to do the right thing.
Right.
He goes, these people, and he's a big gun person. He goes, and he has some very good views on that he goes, if we're out somewhere and he says, I have a concealed carry weapon permit, and of course in Arizona, it's like the Old West.
Yeah.
Which is, the crime rate, we still have crime in the big city, of course, but
Always will.
The criminals over in Arizona are concerned because they know that probably 2/3 of the people in the room are carrying a gun and they're law-abiding citizens.
Right. He
goes, if we're out somewhere and something happens and you're with me, you got a much better chance of surviving with me.
Well, and that's what people don't understand. That's why I take the stance I do on things like gun rights and that kind of thing, is not because I'm pro-gun or like I think guns are great, and that's what a lot of times they try to paint us out like, oh, you guys just think guns are great, you want to be everybody dying from guns. No, we all look at things like mass shootings, we look at things like crime. We're all on the same page there. We don't like it. We want it not to happen, but then our solutions to dealing with that problem are totally different, and I'm like, look at history, look at the states and the places where it has, like you're talking about, where the criminals think anybody that they're trying to mess with, they think, hey, that guy could have a gun.
There's a good chance.
He could legally have a gun on him right now, to a place where they're not legally allowed to have them. And so they could still have one, but most likely they don't.
Right.
So the crime goes up with less guns. And that's what a lot of people don't seem to understand, And every time there's a mass shooting, everybody gets up in arms about, we need to outlaw guns. And then somebody like me says, well, no, that's not going to help. And they say, well, are you glad all those kids are dead in that school? Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I'm so happy about that.
Caught me.
Yeah, it's like nobody's happy about that. But I just don't think your solution is going to stop things like that. I think it's going to make more things like that happen,
I tell people I would absolutely gladly give up my guns if they could somehow guarantee me that every gun on the entire planet was...
Bingo.
Because I said, if all the people that legally own guns, and I actually regularly go through training, I go through tactical training, and the thing I like about where I train is they teach you. There's a lot of classroom of what they call verbal judo, how to size up a situation, how to defuse a situation.
Right.
They teach you all and all the legal aspects of once it becomes apparent that somebody's going to die, you really want it to be the bad guy and not the good guy.
Yeah. Right.
And then these are your legal, But I tell people I would, I have a few guns and I would give them up gladly if you could guarantee me that every gun on the planet was gone.
Absolutely. Like in that Superman movie from the 80s where you put them all in a big pile and he threw them off into the sun or whatever that was, all the nuclear warheads and everything. But see, that's just not a reality, because if they outlawed all the guns tomorrow, the criminals are still going to get them.
Yeah. I absolutely believe there should, I don't want to say stricter rules on, I think the key is it's like anything, just how you raise your kids, education and parenting and whatnot. I think that, an example, I went to a gun show where there was an organization there that was saying they were advertising you can get your concealed weapon permit in 30 minutes.
Wow.
And I had a friend that was going to go do it.
That's a little soon.
I said, I will pay you to go to the place I went.
Right.
I said, it's 8 hours.
Yeah.
But it's the best 8 hours I've ever had in my life.
Right.
Because they spent most of the time telling you about your legal, what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
And
there's a responsibility.
Yeah, responsibility. How to be, and I truly believe, and I don't know how they could do it, but if they to generate responsible gun owners. If you decide that that's what you want to do, then you have to get educated. It's like anything.
Yeah, right.
If you want to be a dentist, you need to go to school and learn what it means to be a dentist.
Yes.
If you're going to own a gun, you should, and it's not like you have to go for 4 years and spend hundreds of $1,000s.
Right.
Go once a week for a month to these classes and learn how to, first of all, learn how to hit what you're shooting at.
Right.
And learn about, like I said, verbal judo, how to defuse a situation, how to avoid the situation.
Yes. So the gun is the last resort.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
well, because where there's not a lot of mass shootings and stuff is in communities where young kids are taught from an early age how to use guns, how to hunt, how to do this, how to do that, how to gun safety, that kind of stuff.
Right.
You don't see a lot of that. Why? Because they're responsible with it. They know what it's for and what the purpose is and how to be safe with it. And they know it's a last resort.
Yeah.
It's these guys that don't really know what they're doing, and they got evil in their heart, evil in their mind, like, oh, I want to wipe all these people out or whatever.
Right.
Like the guy in the Vegas concert, that Jason Aldean concert. I mean, just, they don't that's why stuff like that happens. I mean, obviously there's more to that. Obviously it's always the inner person that's the problem. I agree with you on that, because the gun's just the tool. Right. And that's what they say. Well, what if you take all the guns away? Well, then people like that will find other ways to do it. They're not just going to be like, oh, well, I had these delusions of grandeur of just like killing all these people, and now that I don't have a gun, I guess I won't do it. Yeah. No, he's going to find a bomb. He's going to use a knife. He's going to run him over with his car. He's going to do something, because the problem is he has an issue that needs to be dealt with, So, oh, man. So I think we're kind of on the same page with guns. But you did mention, like when Biden came into office and the whole deal with that. Are you following at all kind of the 2024 potential candidates?
That's another thing that gets me like almost. I mean, I really feel as an American, it's your responsibility. If you're eligible to vote, you should go out and vote. Mm-hmm. And I would prefer that people go out and vote in person. It's because the mail-in. I mean, I do travel a lot, and I get a mail-in ballot because a lot of times I'm not home. I said, but if I am home, I go in and vote in person. Not because I'm not, the big theory about, stealing the election. I just think that that's the right way to do it.
Sure.
But when I watched the debate, well, I haven't sat through an entire debate because they usually, the Republican debate, all they're doing, they immediately start out just bad-mouthing each other and Trump.
Right, exactly.
And I'm like, who's running these debates? Do they not have some questions that have to do with what are we going to do to get the gas prices down?
Yes.
What are we going to do to make our country safe? I mean, let's talk about something you're going to do to fix some problems, not how big of a butthead Trump is or whoever. It's like that's all they want to talk about. And I go, that's not how I'm going to base my vote.
Right. Well, because you're smart.
I'm not going to vote for any of you. If that's all you can do is talk about how the other person, I go,
I don't want to hear how bad the other guy is. I want to hear how good you are.
Yeah.
Right? Like, tell me why you're the best
person. And it kills me that, it's debate after debate after debate. And the moderator's just like, it's like, is anybody running this show?
Right.
Let me be in charge.
Yeah. There you go.
I'll put a shock collar to everybody. As soon as they start that, I'll give them a little shock.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Back to the topic at hand.
Yeah. But I mean, it's such an interesting thing because they're talking about how 2024 is good. Whether whoever wins, whoever runs, it's going to be one of the craziest election cycles of all time. And right now, as we sit here anyway, by the time this airs, might be different. But right now, Trump is just running away with he hasn't done a single debate yet because he's like, why would I do that? I'm already winning. Like I'm already in there. He's way ahead of like Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, and and who's Chris Christie or Vivek. I don't know if Vivek's still in or not, but and then the Democrats are still pushing that Biden says he's going to run again. Yep. I don't know about that. I don't know if they're really going to because
I think if you could poll all the Democrats privately, I don't think that they.
No, they just want somebody who can beat Trump. Is really all they want. But what I find fascinating is that Gavin Newsom challenged Ron DeSantis to a debate, where Gavin Newsom is not running for president, even though people are saying, "Oh, yes, he is." Yes, he has not officially ever said that, because in order for him to take the Democratic seat, they got to get Biden out of there first. But I'm like, but does he know something we don't? Because why would you challenge Ron DeSantis to a debate? Like it just seemed weird to me, it was that was a great debate. I'm a big Ron DeSantis guy, by the way. I think he would be my pick if I could put someone else in there besides Trump, because I like a lot of what Trump did in the 4 years he was in office, but I also don't like his what's the word? Immaturity in a lot of ways, like his your mama jokes he throws at everybody.
He's a narcissist.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a lot of flaws.
If you just learn how to be a little more political, I mean, it's nice to have somebody that's not political,
for a change, right?
But at least don't act like it's the 4-year-old at the sandbox kind of.
Exactly. That's exactly what I've said. I've said before. I've called him a 5-year-old because if somebody says anything to even remotely criticize him, he comes back with, "Oh yeah, well you're an idiot," or your mama's fat," or whatever. He always has some idiotic thing to say. It's like, dude, that's not the answer to what they just said to you. So but I look at DeSantis, And I think he holds a lot of the same politics or policies. I think that what he's doing in Florida is awesome. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that. I think it's fantastic. I think if he came in and did what he did in Florida in the whole country, we'd be in a much better place. I think a lot of those morals that you were just talking about that are going down the toilet would start coming back, because he is fighting back against things like biological males in the girls' locker room and sexualized curriculum in the elementary school libraries and things like that. But then they try to turn around and say, oh, Ron DeSantis trying to ban every book. He's just banning books. No. He's saying he doesn't want pornographic material in the 5th grade classroom. That's what he's saying. That's not banning all the books. You guys are crazy, So. And
he's for the notification to parents of things that are going on in school.
Right.
Like
exactly.
I don't know how anybody can argue against that.
I know.
Well, apparently they don't have kids. I don't know. Or
they usually don't.
Or they don't like their kids.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I don't get that either. I think parents should be, because their argument is, well, but what if, little Billy wants to go by little Sally and he wants to be a girl, and what if mom and dad aren't okay with that? They're going to be mean to him. They could be abusive to him. And I'm not saying parents abuse their kids for any reason. It's not okay.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you eliminate the parents.
Right.
And, we're going to hide this from the parents. It's like, no, that's not right either. What I mean? It's like, my gosh, what are we doing? But anyway.
Yeah, there's a possibility the parents might care for their kids and say, well, why don't we discuss this and look at it, look at all different aspects and angles and think about it for a little bit. Because sometimes, that's another thing about the morals. There's so much stuff being thrown at kids at way too early of an age that they're curious or whatever. So they might do something or think they want to do something just because it's something they saw.
Right.
If you give them a year to think about it, they're going, hey, what was I thinking?
Yes.
It's called growing up.
Right. Well, and that's what statistics...
You don't get to make those kind of decisions when you're
correct.
2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade.
Yes. And that's why, thankfully, there's most people seem to be against the surgeries and stuff and the puberty blockers to be given to minors. At least even people that are like pro-trans rights are like, yeah, but not for 13, 14-year-olds. When they're 18, 19, whatever, that's a different story. It's just crazy. I mean, when you're a little kid, you think lots of stuff. My kids might think he's a robot one day or think he's a dinosaur the next day. I mean, does that mean I'm supposed to treat him like he actually in reality is a dinosaur? No. And statistics show, too, that a lot of, now that we're seeing some statistics that are coming out, a lot of the kids in that elementary age or maybe early junior high, early high school that are claiming to be transgender, by the time they're in their early 20s are totally past it.
Right.
They're like, no, that was just some weird phase I went through. I'm not that. I think I'm the gender I was born as, So if we're going to start doing surgeries on kids that are irreversible, then they get to be 22 and they're like, oh crap, now what? Yeah. What am I going to do with these body parts I don't want? It's just a mess. And it's crazy to me that there's a lot of adults that are on board with that. I'm like, what in the world are you doing? So do you have, well, first of all, let me ask you this. So if it's Trump Biden, who do you like better out of those two?
If it's Trump Biden, I would vote for Trump.
Okay, me too. But would you, if you could have another option instead of Trump as the running?
I would the last time Trump ran, I would have liked to see another option.
Okay, I think a lot of people.
I agreed with a lot of things he did, and as a person that travels a lot with a big diesel pickup, I can tell you right now, I'm not liking
the gas prices.
I just went down and filled up Janice's pickup. It was like $6 a gallon. It was $3.50 in Arizona.
Isn't that crazy?
Maybe that has more to do with state politics. I don't know. But, I think he was good for the economy. I just, like you said, I just wish he could grow up a little bit with how he reacts to certain things that he disagrees with. So, I got a lot more respect for a person that can argue intelligently about something.
Yes. Right. Yeah, like Ron DeSantis.
What's her name? Candace?
Candace Owens?
I'm telling you what, I saw her rip up some people there in a Senate meeting one time. I said,
"Oh yeah,
if she ever runs for president, I'm guaranteeing I'll be running her local office
Yeah, she's great. She's bold, man.
She doesn't even need a vice president.
Yeah. Well, she I don't know if you saw this, but she does a show, her own show, and she had Trump on one time. Mm-hmm. Not physically, but he was like on the video chat or like a Zoom call or something. Yeah. And she had even said to him, if you're gonna run 2024, or whatever, consider me as a VP,
That's censored for me, right?
Yeah. She's got some good stuff. I love when she shows some of the videos where it shows her. In fact, the latest few have shown her like 8 months pregnant because she's on maternity leave from her show right now, but. She's like 8 months pregnant and she's out of college or something, and she'll be on stage, and they usually give a talk,
right? And
then they'll let all the students ask them whatever they want, like have all these questions. And most of the videos I see, it's usually negative thing, like the kids are like, well, why are you this, and why do you think this, and you're dumb because you think this, and she just eats them up.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, like with logic and reason, not like name calling back to them,
right.
But like literally saying, well, here's why I believe what I believe. And that is ultimately why I fall on the right and not the left, because I feel like the right is based more on logic and facts and reason, and the left is more based on feelings and emotions and, I don't like that because it makes me feel sad, or that makes me angry. I don't like it. It's like, well, why does it make you angry? I don't know. It just does. Yeah. Nah, that's not a good enough answer for me.
People do things. People do things without even thinking about it. Like,
right.
It's like, and companies do too. You see, they're all trying to be woke and liberal and accept everybody. I mean, look what Bud Light, what they said. They lost billions of dollars over that.
Yes.
It's it's like
they're still trying to climb out of that hole.
There was no reason for that.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying be against it, but
no.
Why would you?
Don't take any stand at all, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to, I don't know anything about advertising, but I would think that if you're in the advertising business, that you want to appeal to, you don't want to get selective on who you're appealing to. You want to try to appeal to the biggest group of people you can without trying to be selective, and so that way you turn other people off.
Yeah, well, because you split your audience every time you make a statement like that. You're going to have half the country cheering you on, right on, and the other half the country goes, well, I'm not drinking Bud Light anymore.
I have a buddy, I can't remember his exact quote, but he sees us every time if we're sitting in the office or something, a commercial comes on that's real, he says, I said, well, that's great. Another product I know I don't have to buy because I'm not included in their...
Yeah, it's like, well, they kicked me out of their group, Yeah. And I think they're starting to learn that the hard way. Yeah. I think even like with Disney and kind of some of the stuff Disney's been pushing in their last couple of movies, putting a gay character in, putting a trans character in, or those kind of things. And like I said, I'm sure there's a big part of the country that is so excited about that.
Yeah.
But just the true fact is, most of America has no interest in taking their children to see a movie like that. Yeah. They just don't. Yeah. Right or wrong, it's just the facts. That's just the way it is. So if I'm Disney, I'm not going to touch that.
Right.
I'm going to make movies about fairy tales and fun stuff that kids of everywhere can go see, Because it's not like if Disney makes a movie that doesn't have a trans character, the trans community is going to be like, no, I'm not going to go see it.
Yeah.
There's no trans kid, I'm not going. Right. No, they're not going to do that. But the opposite will be true, right? So it's just every time they split. That's why I've always said, if I'm a CEO of something, I'm not saying nothing about my political views on anything. I'm like, look, this is my product. This is what I make. If you like it, buy it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, what are your thoughts on this? No comment.
Yeah.
But then even then, they're like, oh, no comment's an answer.
Yeah.
He must mean, and then they start, the rumor mill starts and all that, but at least you're not flat out saying it. All right, so do you have, so Candace Owens would be, like, you'd like to see her in there running instead of Trump?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sure that won't happen, but.
It won't. Not right now, anyway. I don't even know if is she old enough? You got to be 35. I don't know if she's 35 yet. She might be. Yeah, she's pretty young. I know she's definitely not 40 yet. I know that, but she's not my age. I don't think it'll happen but I think she would as time goes on, but yeah. Hoosers. All right. So what about this one? This is a question that can go anywhere. What do you see as the biggest issue or problem facing our country, or even our world, if you want to make it more broad?
That's tough there.
Yep.
with the whole world, it's just so much hate.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they would include the United States, but I mean, what I would like to see in the United States is I'd like to see the economy get back to a good economy.
Okay.
I mean, to me, that would be the number one issue, because I think that trickles down to so many other issues. I mean, it affects so much, going on in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how do you think that can be fixed? Like, if you were given the power and all the resources to fix the economy, where would you start?
I don't really have an answer for that, because I don't. I mean, there's so much that you really, before you speak on that, you really need to educate yourself on. I mean, I think when one thing I look at, again, because I travel so much and because I have a big diesel pickup, which I would be driving something that got 40 miles a gallon, but to most of my job sites, I take a big RV. It's a 46-foot. It's like a semi-trailer almost. It's a 46-foot toy hauler.
It's like a house.
And I need a big pickup to drive it. Although I just ordered a brand new pickup. Well, I ordered it back in the end of August.
Mm-hmm.
Which I have. My truck right now is a 1999 with 500,000 miles on it.
500,000?
Yeah. But it's got a 7.3 diesel, which anybody out there in your podcast land that knows 7.3 diesels, they're a heck of a motor.
Yeah.
Unless the person out there hates Fords, but
I'm sure they're out there.
It's been good for me. The problem is that when I got this bigger RV, like I said, it's like a semi. It's huge, and of course, it's also a very well built one, so it's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need a big pickup. Well, I do a lot of work. I go up into Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and I do a lot of mountains. And this truck I got, it's just wearing this truck out too fast. So I ordered a big brand new one. So yeah, I'd like to see the fuel prices, and when I think they got to start drilling again, start pumping oil out.
Yeah,
we need to be more self-sufficient and not rely on.
Okay.
And I'm not. I know a lot of people that have electric vehicles, and. I just think they want to eventually get to like every single vehicle in the state of California is going to be electric in 2035 or 2045 or something. But then they have such a big problem with their power grid. I'm like, okay,
right.
And then I also the more I read about these batteries, it's slave child labor in China and Africa or wherever that's mining for all this stuff, and the hundreds and hundreds of pounds of stuff that it takes to make one of those batteries, and then what are we going to do when we're done with that battery?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody I know that has electric vehicles swears by them, but I just don't. I think the carbon footprint that those batteries create is like how many years? What they say is you can operate that battery for 7 years, or I think it's 7 years, but the first 5 years of it, you're still not even on the carbon footprint. So it's like
right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that might work for a small percentage, but the idea of having everybody drive electric, like if they outlawed gas engines or something, and they're like only electric vehicles, I think that's really bad for us in the long run. I think when we get to the end of that,
like you said, the power grid's going to
right. Yeah.
And I of course I drive semi every once in a while, and I know that Tesla built a all electric semi like 7 or 8 years ago.
Really?
And they've just been running up and down Interstate 5 for several years, just with a loaded trailer, just to see how. And there's a lot of great mechanical things to it that only somebody that works around semis would really appreciate it. I mean, there's no brakes. The brakes all done in the motor. There's no transmission. It's all this stuff that costs a lot of money to work on, and you're always doing maintenance to on a diesel truck.
Right.
And it goes up that mountain at at 55 miles an hour with no problem. So there's a lot of advantages to it. But then again, that battery, that battery's $25,000 or $30,000 just for the battery. And when it's spent, and of course now, and it's kind of like the amusement ride industry. I don't think it happens as much as people think it does. But when there's an accident, and it's on TV. Well, now with all these electric vehicles, the fires. They have these fires, and they say that they put these fires out, and and it's in the junkyard, and a week later it starts up on fire again.
Wow.
And the fires are hard to put out, and they restart. So they have these blankets now they're building. I mean, there's
They just keep building stuff to fix it instead of saying, let's just get rid of it.
At my age, 69 years old, just being old-fashioned, I guess,
Okay.
I just like, but as far as the country, I think the number one thing I'd like to see, I think if the economy got back good, people were working and feeling good about themselves, I think it would have a big effect on just every aspect of life, I think.
Right, kind of the psyche of people, which gets back into the hate thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
Because people are looking for somebody to blame for their problems, and then, different groups get put in there, and then that's when the hate starts, which is unfortunate. But, we should just be able to sing Kumbaya and, get along together,
Can't we all just get along?
But I mean, do you think that a lot of the hate though that's happening because it's getting worse, right? Like over the last 10 years, it's gotten worse in our country. I personally think that the media is playing a big role in that because I think right, they're telling the story that they want us to hear. It's not always the real story. It's not always the full story. And a lot of times it seems to be for the purpose of fueling hatred towards each other. And I can get that far, but then I start to think of like why, and that's where I get lost. I'm like, what would be the benefit of that? Yeah. Like, why do you want all this racial tension? Why do you want all this, not gender tension, like man versus woman tension? Right. Like, why? Like, why? What's happening? Right versus left. It's like everybody choose a side, and it's like everything seems to be leading towards some kind of a civil war. And I'm like, for what? What's it even fighting over? It doesn't make any sense to me. But
yeah, the media has been, and again, that when I look back at my dad being in the newspaper and radio business, and when we moved to Arizona, being a politician, he was adamant about watching the news every night, and I watched it. Not that I really cared that much, but I remember him talking about certain newscasters, and they go, this guy's really kind of a Democrat, liberal, or whatever, but he tells the story accurately. He tells it from both sides. He gives not opinions, but he gives you the facts, right, and lets you decide. Well, hardly him. Even whether if you're liberal or Democrat, if you're a conservative Republican and you love Fox News, they do the same thing. They
Absolutely.
all do it. They all twist it like you're just like, can somebody? That's that guy that I listened to there in Phoenix. He really tries to tell you the whole story,
right.
And I really like listening to him because he's one of the few people I've ever heard that actually does. He lets you know his opinion. Yeah. But he also likes to tell you the fact. This is the facts. Right. And it's the media just doesn't. And I don't get it. I mean, what they're trying to like. I think a lot of people get wound up and angry and they don't even know why. I mean, they don't realize that they're just being. It's like a pack of wild animals. They're just being led. Like. They're getting involved just because everybody else is getting involved.
Right, exactly.
So it's the thing to do. I'm just going to go out and be mad at somebody today about something.
Yeah. That's why I think that if someone wanted to run for president or whatever, governor or whatever, and their whole platform was to say, you know what, we're going to start jailing news companies that can be proven to be only giving half the story. Yeah. They're done. They're out of here. Yep. Anybody that's showing only side of the story to promote some kind of agenda, they're gone. So that's jail time. I'd be like, I'm voting for that guy. Yep. Because I think that would clean up so many problems. Because I've literally talked to people face to face that will say something. Oh, well, you know how this and this. I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. When did that happen? Oh, I heard it on the news and said that. It's like, dude, that never happened. Yeah. What? Oh, I said, look into it. Look into that on your own and see if what you just said actually happened. It did not happen. Yeah. You believe it happened because somebody told you that and you ran with it. Yeah.
And you assume that because it's on TV that guy,
absolutely,
the guy on the other side of that tube is telling the truth.
Right. But at the same token, they'll hear somebody say something they disagree with, and they're like, "Oh, you can't trust people on the news." Mm-hmm. Oh, unless they say something you like, then all of a sudden it's definitely 100%. True. It's just like, come on, people.
I think when people do an interview, I do a lot of interviews in the amusement ride safety business because the news the news wants to come out I don't want to say most of the fairs I go to have a pretty good relationship with the local media, and they're mostly fair friendly. But so every once in a while, you'll get a question like, like they just want to hear some blood and guts thing. It's like,
right?
Yeah, this guy spent $10 million buying all this carnival stuff so he could come out here and kill somebody.
Right. Exactly.
And it's fifth generation. Yeah, he wants to go get a job as a Walmart greeter tomorrow because he's tired of being in the carnival business, so he's going to kill your kid.
Yeah.
And like.
Yeah, or potentially go to jail from a lawsuit.
I try to do as many as I can live, but I did and this will everything seems to go back to Michael. I got involved, and I felt uneasy about it right from the very start. But a friend of mine convinced me that this was all going to be good and positive. It was somebody from a journalist from England was doing a thing on. And this is just a few years ago, doing a thing on documentary on Michael's animals. Okay. And what happened to him after Neverland closed.
Yeah.
And I had some pretty funny stories about the zoo, so I agreed to do this. And I said, listen, they told me when they wanted to do it, and I said, I work for a living. Yeah. And you're going to have to come to me, and if I get called on the radio,
I got to go.
You're going to have to just wait. Oh yeah, no problem. We really want to know you.
Oh wow!
So they came to. Well, they were doing other things all over everything they were doing was based in the United States.
Okay.
All the different people they were interviewing, but anyway, so I meet the guys at the gate, and I get them in, and I'm still feeling kind of uneasy. But I'm thinking, well, everything I have to say, they just can't twist my stories around.
Right.
They just can't.
Right.
So I'm thinking, yeah, whatever. So these three guys come in. I've never met them before. I've talked to one of them on the phone and had some emails. So there's a camera guy, a producer, and the interviewer. And we introduce each other, blah, blah, blah. And I said, listen, I'm going to tell you something, and I don't know how to say it in a nice way. And I don't want you to think I'm an a-hole, but I just want you to know before I get mic'd up and before I get started with you, if you misrepresent me or Mr. Jackson in any way, I promise you I'll spend the rest of my life making you regret it.
Nice. Nice.
and I thought, well, they're just going to turn around and go back out to their car.
Right. They're like, dang, that's what we wanted to do.
And so they, no, it's going to be positive. It's going to be positive. And everything all the stories I told were, some of them had, because it reminded me of Michael or something funny or whatever, and it, got a little emotional. But they're all funny stories, and great stories about, the animals. And sure enough, when the documentary comes out, it's all negative.
Oh, no way.
It's all negative, and the fans are mad at me. Well, not mad at me, but they're asking, like, why aren't you saying this? Actually, before it came out, they just heard that it was going to be bad.
Oh, okay.
And I said, and they're like, you got to say something. I said, what you're asking me to do is just like what the tabloids did to Michael. You want me to say something about this, and I haven't even seen it.
Right. I
said, I'm not doubting that, the news that you're getting is going to be negative. I said, but I'm not going to comment on it until I see it.
Right.
And it didn't show in the United States. Anyway, somebody sent me a link to it, a month later or whatever, and I watched it, 75 minutes. All I had to say was, I said, for a documentary that was trying to make Michael look bad, they didn't even do that very well.
Right.
I said, that's 75 minutes of my life I'm never going to get back.
Yeah.
And if I was the production company that was paying those guys, I'd want my money back.
Yeah.
But I did notice that there was not 1 second mention or video of my interview.
Oh, really? So you weren't even involved at all. That's because you had nothing but good things to say.
Yeah.
They didn't want that.
I said either they couldn't figure out how to twist what I was saying, or they believed that my threat.
Yeah, they scared. That's good.
Either way, I'm glad I wasn't part of it.
Yeah, that's good that said
that's
that.
That's just how the media works. They have an agenda, and sometimes I've taken a couple of media relations classes because of the interviews I have to do with amusement rides, and sometimes it might be after an accident or something, so it's going to have some negative tone to it.
Yeah.
But I was told this guy, I can't remember his name, but he was an investigative reporter, a very good one for many, many years. And then he became a media crisis at a company that they would go in. If your company had a media crisis, they would come in and fix it.
Okay.
Or make it as positive as they could. And he'd show us a video of an amusement ride accident. not a real one, but just, they'd make a scenario of something. And then you'd break up into teams. And after listening to him tell you how to do it, then he'd get the camera and the light and interview you. And I was part of the last team to go. There's like 6 teams ahead of us. So by the time, and he would critique everybody after they were done and what they did right and what they did wrong. So by the time he got to us, I thought, this is a piece of cake. We learned from everybody's mistakes already. And he still got to us, but we obviously did the best because we had the most, opportunity to learn about all the mistakes.
Yeah.
But he said, the guy that's out there interviewing you, he says, a lot of times you're going to think that they're just like, how can this guy be so mean?
Yeah.
And he's just, all they're looking, they have a producer that's just sent them out there and wants sound bites.
Yeah.
So if you know how to give them the right sound bites, they'll leave happy. And it was funny because when this last year at the California State Fair, I did 4 or 5 interviews there, and they were all positive. But the one guy came out, and as soon as we started, I mean, they all planned on being out there for 30 or 40 minutes or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we were done in like 5 minutes, and the guy looked at me and goes, "You've done this before?" Because he asked me the first question, and I just had all these talking points.
Yeah.
And by the time I got done, he was like, "That's all I need."
Right.
I mean, he had one question for me, and I talked for like 5 minutes, and he goes, "Perfect."
Yeah. So. That's awesome. Yeah, you can't try. I remember during probably before the trial with Michael, because I had quit there only months before that.
Right.
So I had a lot of people contacting me, and I was ignoring them all because I was scared to death. I was like, not because I was scared of talking about what I knew and what I experienced, all that kind of stuff, but because I was scared they were going to take what I said and twist it. Yeah. And there was only one person I talked to, and I don't remember the name now, but it was because because I called you and I said, "Hey, this lady's wanting to come over and interview me and talk to me," and you said, "Well, she's on the good side."
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay." So then I talked to her, and she didn't stay long, maybe 5 minutes. I mean, not that I had a lot to offer.
Right.
It was kind of like, "Oh, did you ever see this?" And nope, kind of thing. And it was like, but even then I was kind of nervous. But the only reason I did it is because you kind of gave it the stamp of approval. I was like, "Okay, good," because I don't trust these vultures that are going to come in and try to twist my words to their benefit, Yeah. And that's what I mean. You talk about these news companies and these media outlets that are being told by their bosses, just get some good sound bites.
Yeah.
That's all we're looking for. That's what I'm talking about. That should be a criminal offense.
Yeah.
No, that's not what you're doing. You're trying to get the news. The truth, the whole story, and then let America make up their minds. Don't be sent in there to purposely try to find little clips you can take out and be like, "Oh, listen to what this guy said. And here's what it means, and he hates these people, and he said this," and the guy's going, "Whoa, that's not what I said. Listen to my whole statement," But it's sickening to me that they're allowed to do that. I don't understand how that's not criminal. I mean, you saw it with COVID, you saw it with the elections, you see it with all this stuff. It's always like, "Oh, what can we just a little bit here and there." You see it with these police brutality videos, supposedly, and all this stuff. "Oh, we'll just show them this little clip,"
right.
And then America's ready to kill this guy, and nobody knows the whole story. It's like, come on, let's get some truth here. It's disgusting to me that it's not so much disgusting that they're doing it, which it is, but that they're allowed to. Nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody's like, yeah. Anyway, I could talk on that soapbox for quite some time. All right. Spiritual talk time. You're one of the few people that knew me before and after my own conversion. So, I literally got saved while working at the ranch, which is part of my testimony that I tell people. I always say, I'm probably one of the only people that can make that. There might be a few people in the world that can make that statement, and I'm one of them. Because I was always very. I don't know. I was never an atheist, of course, but I mean, I hated Christians. I hated Christianity. I hated the Bible. I hated all of that. All that changed for me when I was working at the ranch. God did just kind of a work in my life. That's really the only way I know how to explain it. So why don't you just kind of walk through me, kind of like where you're at spiritually? You believe, I mean, we've talked before. I know you believe in God, just kind of when did that first happen for you?
Well, I was raised in my grandparents on my dad's side, when I lived up in Montana, we went to church every Sunday.
Okay.
And it was a Catholic church.
Okay.
And I actually was getting dressed up and everything. Although back then, the nuns kind of scared me a little bit.
I bet. That was kind of their job, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah. So, anyway, then when we moved from Montana down to Arizona, I think my mom's always been very strong Christian.
Okay.
We continued going to church every Sunday, and I think it was still a Catholic church. I'm pretty sure it was.
Okay.
And of course, then when my parents got split up, we didn't have to go to church anymore, which was fine with me. It's not that I didn't dislike it.
Mm-hmm.
I think because I did it so much, I just thought that was the thing to do.
Right.
I wasn't really getting the message. I kind of was, but not really like I should have been, I guess.
Yeah.
And
about how old were you when your parents split up?
Let's say a freshman in high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I think I always, even though we quit going to church, I think in the back of my mind, I believed in the Bible and Christianity and whatnot. Okay. I just wasn't very good about doing anything about it.
Right.
I definitely hung out with the wrong kids, but I always, like, when it came time, when the people I was hanging out with got ready to do something that was really wrong, I didn't take part in it. I said,
okay.
Yeah, that's just going a little bit, right. I like listening to that kind of music and but doing drugs and, breaking into stores and stealing cars, that's just going a little overboard for me. So,
right.
So I think I always had a basic, right and wrong,
moral compass.
Yeah, but I think actually, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, but when I actually started really paying attention and deciding, who I wanted to listen to and whatnot, was after you became a Christian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you had a big part in that.
You sent me a Christmas card one year. Or something. I think it was a Christmas card, and it said something like that in it.
Oh yeah.
It was vague, but it was something like.
That's me, vague.
Yeah. Vague Al.
Might want to run for president.
Yeah, there you go. No, but it just said something along the lines of your. I think it was. And I think in it was like a written out letter, and I think you had said that it was something you had read to Thanksgiving dinner or something. It was basically your testimony. But then in the card, it said something about your relationship with the Lord and how I played a big part in that. And that was all it said. So that's the extent of it. So I don't really understand what that means. Like, was it?
Well, I just saw the change in your life.
Okay.
Not that I'd known you very long or knew you very well, but I could tell that it was a big deal.
Right.
Without even knowing much about your past, I could tell it was a big deal.
Right.
And I actually started listening, very regularly to Greg Laurie and Chuck Swindoll. There's a group of them. I listened to them all the time in the car and whatnot. And when I was driving a truck, I had them on all the time.
Oh, nice.
So,
Did you see the movie, as an aside? Did you see the, what was it called now? The movie about Greg Laurie's life that just came out.
I have a copy on a DVD and I have not watched it yet.
What's it called? Why am I drawing a blank? The Jesus Jesus movement? No, Jesus Revolution.
Yeah,
that's what it's called. Yeah, where Kelsey Grammer plays Chuck Smith and the founding of Calvary. It's a great movie. Yeah, really good movie. Anyway,
it's a fascinating story too. Isn't it? You hear about him because he's got to be close to my age. He sounds like he kind of grew up in the hippie era and
he did
walking on the beach and
well, and that's what the movie's about.
Yeah,
it starts like that. He's in the hippie movement and the kind of the free love, free drugs, all that kind of thing. And
I look at some, of the super churches, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I would call his movement a super church.
Sure,
but I absolutely believe that he's genuine.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of house he lives in, or what is how he lives.
Yeah,
but I believe he's one of the few that have a church that big that is genuine, down to earth.
Yeah, it's easy to hate on the mega churches just because most of the time it's about power, it's about money, it's about all this stuff.
When you see the house and the way this one guy lives, I'm like, holy moly.
Yeah.
That's
We can say Joel Osteen if you want to. I mean, we can say his name on here.
Yeah.
I've said his name many times on here. He's kind of the. I mean, there's lots of churches and pastors like that.
Yeah.
But he's kind of the go-to.
I just saw something about at that house going. I'm like,
yeah, and that's why, because he's
if
everywhere.
I won the $600 million lottery, I couldn't buy a house like that.
Right, exactly. But I mean, yeah, my problem always with those kind of, with him specifically, is more like what he's teaching. It's kind of like, that's not even in the Bible. Like, where are you getting that from? You know what I mean?
when I'm listening to Chuck Swindoll and Greg Laurie and David Jeremiah and all those people.
Oh yeah.
And I have some friends that went to one of Joel's things in Phoenix. And I told them before they went, I said, the problem I had with that guy, and it wasn't that anything to do with what kind of house you live in or anything. It was like, I watched one of his shows on TV from start to finish, and I go, I'm not the sharpest tool in the book when it comes to. I can't explain to you every word in the Bible and what every story means. I said, but I can tell you this: when I watch his thing, everything is wonderful.
Exactly.
And I go, and that's not true.
Right. Yes. Yes. See, and that's the thing.
The old bumper sticker, read the Bible to scare the hell out of you.
Yes.
That's the point.
Right. And that's why I honestly believe that there are two gospels being preached in this country. There's one that says, believe in Jesus. All your problems will go away. All your issues will be gone. You'll have all the money you need. You'll have all the health you need. Yeah. And then there's the real one, which is like, no, follow Jesus, and a lot of things in your life are going to get worse.
You're going to get tested.
Yes, exactly. But the spiritual benefit to that is going to be worth all of it, right? Because, I mean, you're talking about eternity here. Yeah. You're talking about, if you have a long life on earth, you're maybe 100 years.
Most people don't think like that.
They don't. Yeah. They think in the here and now, which is part of the problem. That's why somebody like Joel Osteen's ministry is so appealing.
Yeah.
Oh, I can get a new car? Yeah. Oh, God wants me to have my best life now? He wants me to be, or whatever. And, since I work at the library, I see his books come through all the time. And whenever a new one comes out, I have to flip through it. Just kind of like, okay, what's he saying now? Yeah. And a few years back, he had one come out, I Declare. And the whole point of the whole book was basically, if you just say, I declare, and then something after that, it will happen for you. Yeah. I'm like, dude, everybody knows that's not going to work, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, relax, it's not going to work. Maybe for one person, and that's who will do the endorsement for the book. Oh, I put this into practice, and now I'm a millionaire. I just said, I declare I'm a millionaire, and look what happened to me, Yeah. It's like, yeah, but what about the millions of other people that tried that and it didn't work? You don't put them in your book, It's horrible. Oh, my gosh. So just to kind of backtrack, so kind of like your whole life, you're kind of like me then. Your whole life you've had a belief in God. Mm-hmm. You never were an atheist. Your parents kind of brought you up going to church for a big part of your young life, and then you kind of just did whatever's for a while, and then you kind of started getting more serious about it in your adulthood. And has that continued? Is that something you still kind of do now, or are you okay?
Oh yeah.
Okay, but it's probably hard for you to like settle down with a church body or anything like that because you're moving around.
I try, like I said, I try to watch Greg Laurie. Sometimes I'll tune in. My phone will tell me, "Hey, Greg Laurie's on."
Yeah. Okay.
And when I travel, I can listen to one of his sermons every night if I want to.
Yeah. And he said one of my favorite quotes one time, and you probably know the one about the burrito supreme. Hear that? He says, going to church doesn't make you a Christian any more than going to Taco Bell makes you a burrito supreme. I thought, yes, exactly. So simple yet so true. My oldest daughter, who's 25 now, she's married, living down in Whittier. She's been to his church a few times. Yeah. Like the actual church down there was in where is it? Riverside? Okay. Yeah, so she's been there. Oh, have you been to his actual services?
I've gone to, like when I do work the LA County Fair, I'll go over there. And actually, and this guy, actually, him and his family came to the ranch once. Real good guitar player. I'm going to get his first name wrong. Agajanian.
Oh, Dennis Agajanian?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
He plays into my testimony.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
Because after I had gotten saved at the ranch, I was reading the Bible all the time. I still had a problem with church. I was still like, had bad experiences with church growing up. The youth groups I felt like were always looked down on me in my mind. They looked down on me, which they probably should have. I mean, I was a punk, but I was only there for the girls. And my cousin called me up one night, who had also recently just become a Christian, totally separate from me. And he goes, "Hey, you got to come check out this guitar player. He's really good."
He is very good.
And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Where? I'd never heard of him before. I was like, "Where?" He didn't even know the name. He just said, "You got to come check out this guitar player." I go, "Where are you at?" He goes, "I'm over here at Calvary Chapel, across from Kmart." I said, "Okay, I'll go. I'll check it out." So I walked in there, and I'm kind of looking around at the building. I'm going, "Oh, that's kind of a nice building." Like totally superficial. I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of a cool place." And I went to listen to him play, and I was like, "This guy is really good, man. This guy's amazing." Yeah. And then I'd gone home that night and told Bethany, because Bethany had been wanting to go to church, and I'm just like, I'm not ready for that yet. I still don't like church people. I'm not ready to jump in with all that yet. She's like, "But babe, you're a Christian, right?" I said, "Yeah." She's like, "You're reading the Bible all the time. You're talking about God all the time." I said, "Yeah." But she's like, "Why don't you want to go to church?" I said, "I'm just not ready." So anyway, I went home and I said, "Hey, I just went and saw this guy play guitar in this, but this church looks pretty cool." Knew nothing about the pastor, nothing about the teachings, nothing about the people that go there, just the building itself.
Looked
totally
cool, they had a good guitar player.
Exactly, right. And it wasn't even like he was going to be there he was just there playing a concert.
Yeah.
And so I said, "Yeah, you want to try this church on Sunday?" And of course she's like, "Yes," because she's been waiting to go to church. And she's like, "Yes." So then we ended up going to Calvary, and then we were there for 5 years. That was kind of where I started. And we're actually back there again now. We've been back for about a year now, a little over a year. But yeah, that was kind of the whole start. That was the very beginnings of my church experience as a Christian, where I wasn't just there for the girls, I was actually there for the teaching and the fellowship and everything else. So how funny. So when did he come out to the ranch? Was that like before I worked there?
Well, the family was actually, the family, you can see pictures of Michael with them at the Super Bowl or somewhere.
Oh, they were friends.
Yeah, he knew the family, yeah.
Interesting. I wonder how that happened.
I don't know.
Or how come Michael never featured him on an album?
I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say. Yeah, because he's quite the guitar player.
Well, he held the record for the fastest guitar picking at one point. Yeah. I don't know if he still does, and he's a big dude. Was he like 6'8" or something? He's just tall, he's massive.
Could have been a wrestler.
Yeah. Like Andre the Giant.
Yeah, he's a big dude. Big dude, kind of scary looking too.
Yeah. So like, what would you say like your Christian walk is today? Do you still listen to sermons? Do you ever read scripture on your own or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't read the Bible as much as I should, but
I don't think any of us do really.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I try. Like I said, I have satellite radio in all my vehicles, and so that's easy to there's a channel there you can go on just about it. 24/7, and you can listen to somebody. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
What are your thoughts on heaven and hell? So we're going to get into some heavy hidden topics here. So
yeah, I really haven't formed too much of an opinion, other than I prefer to go to heaven.
Right. But do you believe both places are real places?
I believe, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does say that in the Bible.
It does. Well, I guess that's what I should preface it with and say, are you the kind of Christian that kind of holds to the entire Bible as being true, or do you kind of...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't find a lot of people like you.
No, it's the same thing. A lot of people go, "Well, how could God make hell?" And I go,
right.
He doesn't want to send anybody there, but if that's, he's giving you a choice. I guess he could have made us all like robots. And, I guess we wouldn't even need the Bible.
Right. Yeah, he could have taken free will away completely and just made us all do exactly the right things. And
it's like when they say, how could God send somebody to hell? I go,
right.
I don't think he sends anybody there.
Yeah.
I think he lets you live this long life, and he tries to give you a book to guide yourself with, and if you can't follow the directions, then this is the consequences.
Yeah.
So,
What about people that like are very religious, but in other religions that don't have anything to do with Jesus or the Bible? Like if somebody grew up as a Muslim or as a Hindu and they're very devout,
Well, and I can't remember which one of the people I listened to that kind of led me to. They kind of warned about spending too much time studying other religions.
Okay.
So I haven't really. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
I really haven't studied what they believe, but I just feel like I think they're wrong and we're right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go, man.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I can tell you, I have spent a lot of time studying other religions, and I still think we're wrong, or we're right and they're wrong. So, but like, just I guess the idea and like to where Jesus is he's pretty exclusive in a sense where and this is exactly why I hated Christianity before I became a Christian, was because I felt like it was so exclusive. And so, you know, believe in Jesus and you're in, don't believe in Jesus, you're out. Yeah. To where that most of the other religions are just like, yeah, you believe that's your belief system. This is our belief system. Yeah. All roads lead to heaven, you know, all dogs go to heaven kind of thing. And it's just like, oh, that's so much nicer, you know. It just seems like so nice to wrap that up and put a bow on it, you know. And Jesus comes in and says,
you believe what you want to believe, I'll meet you there.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Exactly, right? You know, but and that's why people have a problem with Jesus, where he's saying things like, I am the only way. That's it. I'm your only ticket. You either have me or you don't, you know. And then people are like, whoa, what in the world? So obviously, if you believe in the whole Bible, you believe that to be true. Yeah. So I mean, so if someone was a Hindu or a Buddhist or something, and they die, you think they would be in hell? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think so too. A lot of people don't like that.
They might not believe it when they first get there. But.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a fascinating. I don't know if you've read The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis.
Mm-mm.
It's you know C.S. Lewis though. Oh, yeah. So he it's a very small book. In fact, I have it right here. It's very it's very small. But he doesn't believe in purgatory. He states that right in the prologue, and he says this is a fictional story, but it's the idea of if there was a waiting place for people on their after they've died physically, now their spirit or their soul is on its way to the afterlife, whether that's heaven for some, hell for some. And the whole book is like these conversations that people are having with each other that are on their way to one of these places. You know, and you have some people that are trying to say, oh, I'm a great person and I'm just such a wonderful guy. And and it's like all these arguments they have about why am I going to this place and that place. And it's really fascinating. It's kind of interesting to kind of see even after death, people are still trying to make excuses, for themselves. And then you have some people who are like, well, I don't even know. I don't know why I'm going.
Check, I need a reservation.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
What do you mean my name's not on the list?
Yeah. Or there's those funny commercials that were on there.
Come on, give me
that. Yeah. Right. But then, I mean, that's kind of like the Catholic. There's a Catholic belief that and I think Mormons believe this too, that you pray for the dead. Right, like you almost pray them into heaven after they've died. Yeah. And it's like, well, I don't know. I think it might be too late at that point. At least if the Bible's true. So kind of your personal belief about the Bible being true and Jesus saying that, and that people of other faiths would be in hell. Does that kind of spur you to things like do you evangelize ever? Do you like talk to people about the Lord, or are you kind of
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Most of the people I think if I ever, and I'm sure that there are instances in my life where, somebody, family member or somebody close to me or something going through something, I try to guide them in that right direction and tell them this will help, but to actually just go out and evangelize.
Yeah. Well, I'm not talking necessarily like standing on a street corner, but I mean, just like, because I hold the philosophy. I didn't always, when I was a brand new Christian, I was that guy trying to tell everybody in the world. But now I'm kind of more like, the Bible says to be ready to give an answer to those that ask you. Yeah. So now I'm just kind of like, I just follow the Lord. And if people ask me, and they do, well, how come you don't do this? Or how come you don't do that? Right. How come you don't want to come out drinking with us? And, or whatever. Why won't you cheat on your wife? It's like, well, because I don't follow that way anymore. I'm a part of a new system.
It's not right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. There's this guy called God, and he kind of says that's bad. bad. But I mean,
back to the morals of the country. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's a good point. Because I have a hard time with kind of separating. They call it church and state, or which that's not ever what that meant, of course. Yeah. But like, if somebody asked me like, Ryan, what would you do to fix the country? Well, I could say on one hand, if everybody was a Christian, I think the country would be a lot better.
Yeah.
But do I think that the government should regulate that and say, oh, you have to be a Christian to live in America? Right, yeah. No, I don't. Because first of all, you'd have a lot of false converts. Oh, I'm a Christian. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Right? Well, who do Christians follow? I don't know. Buddha? No. You got the wrong one. So that's, and that's where I get into things like, even like things like gay marriage. Because on one hand, I can say, do I think gay marriage is anti-biblical and therefore, in my view, wrong? Yep. But then someone says, well, do you think the government should prohibit gay marriage? No, not necessarily. Yeah. Because this is not a country that says you have to ascribe to a certain set of beliefs, and if, to me, that's no different than the Bible also says don't be unequally yoked. But we have no laws against two people of different faiths getting married, or you know what I mean? Like there's just all these other things. So, yeah, it's kind of fun, man. I didn't know any of this stuff about you. Like I said, because like for you, like this isn't something we really talked about a lot when I worked out at the ranch because, it was brand new to me when I started, and then I don't think I worked out there very much longer after that.
Yeah.
But so another one I usually ask is like absolute truth. You believe that exists?
Absolute truth?
Yeah. You know what that means?
It sounds like it should exist.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you get to pick what the truth is.
Exactly.
So I guess I would say, the answer would be yes.
Well, there's absolute truth and there's relative truth, which would be like absolute truth would be this is what it is. Nothing you think, believe, say about it is going to change what it is. Right. It just is. To where relative truth would be like, no, my thoughts are going to change that into something else. Oh. Or there's or maybe opinion wouldn't fall into absolute truth. Right. Like I always use a pizza as an example because I love pizza. But it's like I could say I love mushrooms, you could say I hate mushrooms, and we're both right. Because that's not an absolute truth. That's an opinion. That's relative. Like something that tastes really good to me could taste nasty to you, and that's totally valid. But if I say it is a pizza, that's an absolute truth. Like you could say it's an elephant. Yeah. It doesn't change it into an elephant, you know. But there are some people that do believe that if you think certain things about something, it's gonna it literally makes it true. Like right now with the transgender thing. Yeah. I believe I'm a woman. Therefore, I am a woman. Yeah. No, you're a man who believes you're a woman. That's different. Right? The absolute truth is that you are indeed a male, yet you're identifying or believing yourself to be anything like that. So you would say absolute truth exists. And do you think the Bible is absolute truth?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, man, you're making this really easy.
I didn't come over here looking for a fight. When you're talking about believing in something, it makes me think of this. This goes back to my many times driving a semi. People that drive semis, when they pull up to a state line and they see a scale, a port of entry, normally you have to pull in. They weigh the truck. They see if you got registration for that. See if you're overweight. Do you have a permit? And sometimes they have inspection bays, and sometimes they'll inspect the truck, and that can wind up being into either putting the truck out of service or getting tickets. So most truck drivers don't like it when the scale's open. And I saw a bumper sticker on the back of a truck that says, "I don't have to stop at the scale. I identify as a Prius."
That's awesome.
And I was thinking, when you're talking about absolute truth, I'm thinking now, when he gets pulled over for running the scale.
Right, exactly.
Is he going to tell the cop, "Hey, did you see my bumper sticker?"
Yeah, and it's going to go nowhere.
Yeah.
Right, and that's exactly it. Yeah, when it comes to the transgender thing, a lot of people just, they think, oh no, in this one case, that's okay. But in every other case, it's not.
Yeah.
You know, like Ben Shapiro always uses the 65 argument. He says, what if I identify as 65? Should I get a social security check?
Yeah.
No, because you're only 22. It doesn't matter. I identify as 65. Well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yet it's not ridiculous for a biological male to identify as a woman, and we're supposed to treat him that way. Yeah. I don't know. I don't get it. But did you ever see, as a side note, I guess, did you ever see Matt Walsh's movie, What is a Woman?
No.
Oh, okay. It's pretty good. It's a Daily Wire thing. That's where Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, and Matt Walsh, they're all part of Daily Wire. I don't know if you are familiar. They all have podcasts that they do. Matt Walsh is my favorite, though, because he's funny. He's very deadpan, but he's hilarious. Like, but he says really good things, too. He made a documentary called What is a Woman, where he basically goes around the country, even in the world. He goes to Africa for part of it. And he's just asking that question, what is a woman? You know, a lot of these liberal professors and stuff of colleges, they're like, well, it's someone who identifies as a woman. Yes, but what is that? It's someone who identifies as a woman. Yeah, but that doesn't tell me what the woman is. Like, like it's circular argument, you know? And it's just like, it's pretty funny. But then at the end, it gets pretty sad because he's actually talking to people that have gone through transition that now regret it and that kind of thing. So,
you ever see, I haven't heard of this guy in a long time. I don't know if he's still around, but I would listen or watch him on a video where he would, like you said, he'd go around to different these colleges and he'd get these questions with people that thought they were going to, just put him in the ground. And he was brutal. I mean, he was so elegant how he did it, but he was so intelligent that you couldn't win against this guy.
Right.
Ravi Zacharias.
Oh, yeah. He passed away.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually passed away, and then unfortunately after he died, a lot of pretty damning evidence came out against him sexually, like a lot of his thing. He was one of my favorite apologists. He had some really good books, and I'll still listen to that. And because I'm not the kind of guy who's like, oh, this happened and everything you said must have been crap.
Right.
No, you still said some good things, even though you had some pitfalls in your personal life.
Right.
And I always admire people like that that can do that. And I think to myself, what that is they're confident. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It means they've done the research. They're confident in what they're presenting because they have reasons for what they believe, right? Yeah. And that's why whenever they're talking to somebody who's all emotional and doesn't really have reasons, that's why they resort to things like, oh, well, you're this and I hate you and you die. Yeah, you start name calling. Yeah. To me, that tells me you've lost the argument. Right. Like if that's the best you have to respond to all this logic I just threw at you, then...
you shouldn't have started the argument.
Exactly, right. But that's the dangerous combo. They're so passionate about what they believe, yet they have no idea why they believe it. Right? It's like that's a dangerous combination.
Zero research or very little research.
Yeah, right. It's just oh man. There's another guy, Jeff Durbin, who's actually out of Tempe, Arizona. He's a pastor over there. Apologia Church, I think, is what it's called. That's part of his ministry. But he's like this. He's got interesting testimony too. He came out of the drugs and all that stuff, but he goes around like at abortion mills. He'll stand outside and talk to the people going in, coming out. He's got a lot of YouTube videos on that. He'll stand outside the Mormon temple, talk to Mormons coming in and out, and it's fascinating because like he knows more about Mormonism than a lot of the Mormons that he's talking to. And they'll try to pull something on him and be like, oh, no, we don't believe this. He goes, yes, you do. Look, it's written right here in this book of this whatever. Do you believe in this book? Well, yeah. Well, look what it says. This is your belief. Yet you don't even know you believe that. but
you're in trouble with it.
Yeah. So not only is he really good at the argument, but he's also very loving. I've never seen him yell or get mad at anybody. He's very calm, even when he's like at an abortion mill and these women are just yelling in his face, calling him Satan and saying all these horrible things to him. He's like, yeah, that's all. I mean, if you want to say that, that's fine, but that really has nothing to do with the argument that I'm making. Here's the argument I'm making. Right. Do you have something to rebut what I'm saying? Or are you just going to call me names? Right. That just ticks them off even more because they're like, I hate you. So anyway, all right, man. Well, we're at the end, buddy.
Okay.
Was that painless?
Painless.
All right. Cool stuff. I mean, we can. If there's anything else you want to touch on, or
no, I mean, No, I think we
hit it hard.
Yeah. Covered a lot of topics.
We sure did. And I know I can
I'm sure
talk
whoever
rapid
listens
speed.
to it will figure out we talked a lot about Michael.
Yes. Well, I was figuring and hoping that would be the case because
it was a big part of my life.
Absolutely.
You know?
Right.
And a very positive. I mean, I know at the I did an interview on a documentary. It hasn't been released yet. The guy's still working on it.
Okay.
And well, first I got to tell you that I've had some of the fans go, well, you know, what? And Brad Summery asked me this on the thing I did with him about what you take away, you know, from being with Michael all the time. I said, well, I mean, a lesson that I learned. I took a lot of things away, but a lesson is because he was so giving and so charitable and compassionate about it. I said, no matter what your situation is or what your resources are, there's always somebody worse off that you can, you know, reach out and help.
Yeah.
And but this documentary, I made a statement and I got pretty choked up saying it, but it came to me instantly, which I guess that to me it means I really meant it from the heart.
Right.
The guy says, if you had one last chance to say something to Michael, what would you say?
Oh, wow, what a question.
And I said, I didn't hesitate a second. I said, I'd ask him if I could trade places with him.
Oh, wow. Wow. Wow.
And I told somebody else that, and they looked at me. They didn't get it. They didn't get what I was saying. Like, you mean you want to be a superstar?
Right.
I said, no. I said, I'm 69 years old, and I've lived a very blessed life.
Yeah.
And I think that the positive effect that he had on people and what he would be still doing today, the lives of changing, you know, these kids, that inner city kids, sick kids, whatever. I said, that really shouldn't have stopped.
Right.
You know, it shouldn't have stopped.
Right.
So
that's awesome. And you know, to me, we had a lot of events out there with a lot of famous people everywhere.
Yeah.
My favorite events were those ones with like the inner city kids and the kids that were, you know, I mean, they were kids, so of course they were the way they are, right? But I mean, you could tell that they were just filled with wonder and they were so excited to be there. And, you know, those were some of my favorite people to meet. I had a lot of fun with them, joking around on rides and, you know, telling, saying things, you know.
On that Brad Summery thing, Violet tells a story about the inner city kids, and she was behind the snack bar at the theater, you know.
Yeah.
And they were coming in the theater, and they're like, "What do you want?" And she goes, "These kids had this look on their face, and they were like they almost couldn't speak. They didn't know.
Right.
I mean, they're looking and they want everything, but they don't know what to say."
Yeah.
And she goes, "It dawned on me that these kids, nobody's ever given them anything.
Right.
So they were just like confused. They asked, what do you mean? What do I want?"
Right.
And it was
even the rare occasion they might have got to go to a movie, they knew that everything in the concession stand cost money.
Right.
Here at Neverland, it's like, what do you want? How much it cost? Nothing.
Yeah.
What? Nothing? How's that work? You know? Yeah, it's just such a unique place. I mean, there's is all that out there still, by the way, or did they? I know the rides are gone and the animals are gone, but are the places still there? Like, is the movie theater still there?
All the buildings are still there. The theater's there. They just do a digital. They got a big $high projector, not like we had 35 millimeter. They just do digital.
Yeah.
You know, digital. Well, everything's digital now anyway. But
yeah.
All the buildings are still there, and the rides. He's actually put in about 10 rides. They're all kiddie rides, but he's put in about 10 rides in the train.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the train. Actually, the story I started to tell Prince there was because he said, you know, he's been up there since the new owner.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I was just up there, and he goes, I got to tell you a story about the small train. Well, one of my previous visits, the new owner asked about the trains, and I said, well, both of the trains that were originally here are in storage. I said, I'm pretty sure they're not for sale, but I know that the accountants don't like paying storage on them, and they might make a deal with you to, you know, they still belong to the estate, but you can store them up here.
Yeah.
I said, the steam train, when I shut it down the last time, I thought I was coming to work the next day. So the boiler's destroyed because it was about 3/4 full of water. So the boiler, I said, you won't be able to use that, without dumping about $100,000 into it.
Right.
I said, but the small train should work, and the track's all still there. So I inspected the track, and I gave them they needed to do some work on the track.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they get the trains. A couple of weeks later, I get a phone call. Hey, how do we get those trains from where they're at to where they're, So I called the guy. It was actually a guy up in San Luis. I said, of course, I hadn't talked to him in 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
I said, hey, this is so-and-so from Neverland. Remember I had you move those trains down to Colton? He goes, oh, yeah. I said, well, I need you to move them again. And he goes, where are they going? I said, I'm bound by a confidentiality agreement. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but you're taking them back to the same place you got them.
Nice. That's awesome.
And he goes, okay. So anyway, so they're back up there. So I go, so this one day I'm there inspecting all the rides. They're brand new rides, but I'm still inspecting to make sure they were installed properly, which a friend of mine did it, so I knew they were. But just to make, just
on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's late in the day and all the employees are gone. And Ron Burkle, the guy that bought the place, comes down and he's talking to me, and we're talking about Michael and this and that, and we talked for about 45 minutes, and then I said, I got to go down to the back end of the ranch and look at the small train and walk the rest of the track. And so I walk in, from the park, I walked the track all the way down to the train barn, and it's a 15-minute walk, 20-minute walk. I get down there and the train's all hooked up like they're going to use it, but there's nobody there. They're just like, I guess they didn't want to split it up and put it away properly.
Yeah.
So I'm standing down there for a little bit, just kind of reminiscing about, the good old days.
Yeah.
And I go, well, I guess I should start inspecting the train. Now, I've been there, 10, 15 minutes. So I start walking over towards the train and the music starts playing.
Like through the rock speakers?
No, through the train, on the train.
Oh.
And so I'm like, well, that's kind of weird, because if it was on repeat, I would have heard it, before. I mean, because I've been there 10 or 15 minutes. I said, I think I would have heard it.
Yeah.
So then I realized not only does the music start playing, it's the same CD that Brad Sundberg custom made with certain songs that Michael wanted on it.
Wow.
That's been in there for 15 years.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around.
Wow.
Michael's down here watching me.
Yeah, yeah. And it just came on?
Yeah.
Like you never found out?
No. I shut it off, but I'm like, that's kind of weird.
That is weird. And that's the steam train you're talking about?
No, that was a small red train.
Oh, I didn't know there was
the one that you tried to kill me with.
Yeah. Unsuccessfully. I didn't even know I don't remember there being a sound system on that thing. Yeah. Where was the player? Up front?
Yeah, the very front of the first car, there was a little wooden deck and it lifted up, and there was a CD player in there.
Okay, I don't remember that at all. Yeah. Maybe I didn't know that for a reason. Also, I'd been driving around bumping stuff or whatever, That's so awesome. So those are up and running on the tracks again over there?
Yeah. Well, the red train is the steam train is there, but they just put it in the barn because I told them, I said
it needs some work.
I said if it was me, I said I voted strongly against getting a real steam train when that was first mentioned to me.
Yeah.
Because I understand the safety and the maintenance involved, and I said once we got it, I was really glad because I do like authentic steam, but I said the fact that it had water in it the whole time. I said if it was me, and of course this is a lot of money. And I don't know what the estate wants to do, how they feel about it, but I would convert it over to a hydraulic drive. It's just they use a diesel motor with a hydraulic pump, and they hook up a transmission and things that go to the wheels and turn them.
Yeah.
That way anybody can go up there just like the small train with a key, turn it on. And I said, you don't have this. I said, a boiler is basically a grenade the size of a Volkswagen.
That's why it used to scare me to death whenever I'd be up on there with you.
I said, so if it was me, I would just. I mean, if they want to rebuild it, I said they can rebuild it to a hydraulic drive, and they have special effects things that'll look like steam. It'll be fog or whatever. I said, I said there was really no purpose to having a real steam train other than it is cool to have a real steam train. But
right.
The maintenance and safety issues that go with it are.
Yeah.
It's okay if you got a really nice shop and a crew of people that are dedicated just to that, but.
Yeah.
So it's up there, and I don't know if they're ever going to do anything with it, but it's up there.
Yeah. Well, that's cool though that somebody that knew and loved Michael owns the property, and even that he's doing small stuff like that, he can bring out any rides at all. I mean, is kind of cool, you know. Yeah. I mean, I know it's never going to be what it was, but.
Well, and this guy earlier, we were talking. I don't remember exactly what the topic was. We were talking about people that start at the bottom and work their way up, and they have a different attitude than somebody that had everything handed to them.
Right.
Well, this Ron Burkle, his net worth is like $3 billion.
Was that all?
Yeah.
Chump change.
But if you meet the guy, I mean, he's like Michael, just very down to earth, very just a super nice guy.
Doesn't act like a rich guy.
Well, he says they started out. He grew up in Pomona, and he bagged groceries for a living. I mean, at 13 years old, he says I was bagging groceries at 13 years old. Yeah. And he goes now, which since then he sold it, but he says now I own most of the grocery stores. He owned Kroger's.
Oh wow!
Which owns 5 grocery store chains. And, and eventually they bought Whole Foods.
Well, that explains the billions of dollars right there.
Yeah. So wow. But super nice guy. Yeah.
And does he live there, or is he?
No, he bought it for his son and his grandkids.
Do they live there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then so some of the people that used to work out there for Michael now work for this guy?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
You know who's still there, and he's been there through every owner that's ever owned it?
Who's that?
Jaime.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. He goes, I had to take a year and a half off. He had a stroke, and he still has to, he walks with a bad limp. And, but he said there was a whole year where he could, I mean, you just,
Right. He was the irrigation guy, right? When I was there.
Yeah, mainly the irrigation guy,
And was it his son that worked out there, or was it? I get them all confused, man.
Yeah, there was a lot
so long.
There were so many relatives that all worked out.
Yeah, there was a kid. His name was Victor. He was a little bit younger than me, and I thought he was Jaime's kid.
Yeah,
I could be totally off.
No, I think you're right. Yeah.
What about man? There's so many people, like all those security guards and stuff.
No,
it's
and
like
the security's done. I would have thought. I guess it's just because that's the way I think about being an amusement park and presentation and the public and all that. But when you go to the gate, there's a guy that just wearing Levi's and a raggedy old flannel shirt, uniform.
Yeah,
it's like.
Well, he's not really there to entertain guests and stuff. He's there just to make sure.
I mean, if your job is security, I think to me it just
should look professional. Yeah.
I'd still go with the.
Yeah, just some hillbilly out there in a flannel with a shotgun or something.
The place looks nice, and he's doing things right, and I'm sure it was very challenging for him because Tony did some things that were. I think there's some things that got done that weren't permitted. They weren't done.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah. So.
Well, there's that whole go-kart track that was up on the right. The old one, that's where I used to go to read the Bible. Yeah. Actually, when I drive the golf cart up there and read, but then we had the new go-kart track that was the pavement as opposed to the asphalt.
Yeah.
What about guys like the projectionist guys? Do you ever? What happened to those guys?
Yeah, I communicate with Bob every once in a while.
Okay.
I'm actually gonna stop and see Evie on my way back to Arizona.
Okay.
And I've been meaning to ask her. I gotta believe Lee Tucker's probably passed away.
Right.
He was a freaking 100 years old.
Yeah, I would say he was pretty old back then. But Bruce.
Bruce, yeah.
Yeah, I always wonder about Bruce. I liked Bruce.
Yeah.
He was a cool guy. Bob I didn't know very well. I knew Bob is the one whose sister came out and did projectionist work for a while.
Yeah, she'd deliver film, and occasionally she'd run the projector.
Yeah, she's the only one I met because I remember her telling me, "Oh yeah, my brother Bob does all," and I was like, "Well, I've never met Bob. I only know Bruce."
Bob's cool. I like Bob.
Yeah. Okay.
Everything he said. I was actually doing an event for Warner Brothers Studios, and it was a Christmas event, and there was a projectionist there projecting something up on a big screen, all clips from all these different Warner Brothers Christmas movies. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, do you know Bob Fitzgerald?" He goes, "Oh yeah." So then I called. I said, "Well, I got his phone in my phone book. I wonder." So I called, and so
Oh wow!
He's still doing. He goes, yeah, everything is digital now. You put a movie instead of having 3 big canisters full of 35 millimeter film. It's all on a thumb drive now.
Yeah. I remember that's what was really weird is that back when I was out there, they would do the movies the way the old movie theaters, even though all the movie theaters had gone to an easier system.
Well, I asked Bob, how come you guys don't do the platter system? He goes, well, when you send a movie to a theater, chances are they're going to show that film 50, 60, 100 times.
Right.
He goes, it comes to the theater like this, and they have to splice it all together.
Oh.
So he goes, I could spend, a day in here splicing this film together, and then in the middle of it, Michael says, "Oh, we want to watch this instead." Okay, we'll come back in 4 hours. But, he can take whatever's on the next projector, and he can put the new movie on there, start it, then rewind because it was 2 projectors. Then rewind this one, and he can just just in a couple minutes have it ready to go. So. He goes, the platter system. He says, if that movie was going to stay up here and be shown, 50 times, we'd do the platter system. But that's for what we're doing here. Yeah. And he goes, and most of the people that had projectors in their house, they had the same thing. Yeah. Because they just show it one time. Yeah. Right. Because that was that print. They called it the Bel Air print, which it was a courtesy. People that were in the industry could request a movie and have it shown. There was other people they didn't have theaters quite as nice as Michael's, but they had projectors and small screening rooms. Some of the people that were in the movie industry had them in their houses in Hollywood, Bel Air. Yeah. He goes, the difference with Michael was, he goes, you could request a film and you might get it, you might not get it, and if you got it for one showing, and you were never going to get it again. He goes, Michael could get whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, and keep it pretty much as long as he wanted. Right. But for that, we would do a party for all the people that made that happen. Once a year, we'd do a party for them. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's so cool. Wow, man, that was quite a trip down memory lane. So, all right. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right.
Glad we finally got you nailed down and get you your busy schedule.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can email me at whycan'twetalkaboutThat@proton.me. Here's a clip from the next episode.
You open yourself up to everything spiritual. Like, not everything spiritual is good, and not everything that you're opening yourself up to is going to be holy. And so that at that specific conference that I'm thinking of was kind of my attitude, is like, there's something going on here that is not, it's not biblical in the teaching of what the person with the microphone is saying, and it's not biblical in the response of the congregation. Like, people are just going along with it, and I could literally see how, like, it was just one person influencing the person next to them to be like literally yelling. Right. And I was like, bro,
right,
please.
Exactly.
And yeah, so that was hard for me to even stay in the room for that. And they were like telling people to speak in tongues. No such mention of an interpreter or of what the words could be meaning. And I even talked to my friend who worked at Hume with me. Like, we worked together this last summer, and she was telling me that a story of some missionaries who had gone somewhere and learned a language of the native peoples, and then came back to a worship service, and people were speaking in tongues, and they were speaking the language of the native people. And so only these missionaries who had gone there could understand, and they were speaking blasphemy. Like, it was
interesting.
anti-God. And so that, I feel like, is proof that, like, when you just open yourself up spiritually, like, who are you opening up to? Wow. Because the demons can speak through people too.